Yes Win. Written by
嘟嘟雪球
Chapter 101. Jackal, you can really trick me. After hanging up the phone, Chen Chen couldn't help but grit his teeth. His original plan was to keep a low profile on this matter and wait until the storm had passed and Chen had basically given up the pursuit before he could become active again and develop steadily. But now, the Jackal had actually pushed him directly to the front and in front of Chen. I was suddenly caught in a dilemma. If he accepted it, he would be investigating himself. If he didn't come up with a convincing enough reason, Chen would not give up. But if he didn't accept it, it would be somewhat unreasonable and would easily arouse Chen suspicion. In fact, his acceptance of Jackal's proposal was itself a test. After all, according to Jackal, he was already on the list of so-called suspected gunmen drawn up by Chen. Deliberately staying out of the matter would undoubtedly increase his suspicion. Damn it, didn't I just cheat you out of some money? Is it necessary to take revenge on me like this? Chen Chen bared his teeth and cursed Jackal's family 100 times in his mind. But as he cursed, he suddenly felt something was wrong. Could the Jackal really be that stupid? He had clearly warned me before not to get too close to the 7th Brigade. How could he make such a stupid mistake at this time? Wait, something is wrong. Getting yourself involved may seem stupid, but it seems to be the safest way. After all, no matter how careful you are, it is impossible to guarantee 100% that no traces will be left. The death of a regiment commander would certainly cause great concern in the military circles of Northern Shan State. Although the 7th Brigade did not have a good relationship with the military commission and the district committee, what if they really received support from these two superior organizations? Would they be so easily deceived? Don't they have any experts? In extreme cases, they can even find trace experts from overseas or from a southwestern province to provide support. In that situation, is it really possible for him to escape? Chen Chen calmed down and his heart sank. That's right, the Jackal is not a fool. He may not have been convinced by his own evidence to shift his focus so easily, but he thought he had done enough at the time. Now, something must have happened to change his decision. Chen Chen frowned, thought for a moment, organized his words, and then called Peng Shuqing. And through his silent probing, he did get a key piece of information. The military commission and the prefectural committee intervened at the same time, and it was also decided that they would send a special person to Mungka for support, who was expected to arrive in a week. The special person who provided support was the traceology expert that Chen Chen was most worried about. Although natural factors may erase most traces, in the eyes of professionals, even just a little clue may become the rope that leads to the truth of the whole matter. Chen Chen subconsciously clenched his fists, and the image of the Jackal in his mind finally became a little taller. The situation is very clear. The Jackal had not been deceived by himself. He might not have had proof, but he had guessed at the pattern of his behavior. But he didn't choose to sell himself out, but used this method to protect his good friend. I can't let him down. I must seize this opportunity. Seize this opportunity and finish this matter once and for all, without leaving any residue behind. Chen Chen made a decision immediately. He closed the door of the ward, arranged for Lin He to go out to keep watch, and then explained the current situation to the other 3 people. This matter is closely related to the life and death of the Dongfeng Corps, and no one takes it lightly. After listening to Chen Chen's narration, Bao Qi asked before Shidakai. So the key point now is that we may be tracked by the trace experts sent by the Northern Shan State Military Commission, so we must come up with a strong enough conclusion before them, right? That's right. Chen Chen paused and continued. We are short on time and have few options. This is the biggest problem. We didn't have the opportunity to make long-term plans. We could only use the simplest method to create a conclusion that would convince Chen Yimin. Do you have any ideas? Tell me what you can. As soon as the voice fell, Bao Qi immediately took over and said, can we just kill the trace expert? If we can't deal with the risk, then we might as well get rid of the person who might cause the risk. Not this time. Chen Chen didn't know who this kid learned this idea from. No matter from which angle he looked at it, he exuded a sense of recklessness. But of course, such a plan cannot be said to be completely unfeasible. It's just that there are too many problems in its implementation. After a pause, he continued to explain, killing the expert team that came to support will only make the problem worse and trigger a more extensive and severe investigation. We are just pushing the problem back, but we haven't solved it at all. Understood, Bao Qi nodded thoughtfully, and then said, but apart from this plan, I really can't think of any better way. Unless we find a scapegoat, but the process of arranging a scapegoat is itself full of risks. That's right. Dekai nodded in agreement. Although his injuries had not improved much, he was in good spirits and it did not affect his participation in the discussion. In theory, arranging a scapegoat is even less reliable than directly eliminating the expert group. Killing the expert team at least won't expose us directly, but if the scapegoat we arranged is discovered, then our suspicion will be directly confirmed. This is indeed a very realistic problem, and even Chen Chen does not have a good solution. Is there any way to find someone to take the blame? I mean, don't use a scapegoat, just let him admit it himself. Bao Qi continued to ask. It's impossible to find such a person in a short time. Even if we find one, we can't trust him. Instead of helping us, he might as well take our secrets and go to the 7th Brigade to claim the reward. After all, the price Chen Yimin offered is a real high price. Indeed. How about putting the blame on the 756th Brigade? They already have a grudge against each other, and the 756th Brigade can't clear itself of suspicion. No matter what they say, the 7th Brigade won't believe it. Chen Chen continued to shake his head. If we don't participate in the investigation, if the expert group doesn't come, this plan is feasible, and that's what I originally planned. But when the task force came, things changed completely. This was equivalent to shifting the conflict, gaining the trust of the 7th Brigade, and then being hunted down by the 756th Brigade. The situation did not improve at all. The discussion came to a stalemate. All seemingly feasible plans were rejected, and the faces of the three people looked grim. But at this moment, Li Bang, who had not participated in the discussion, suddenly spoke up. He said, "In fact, in northern Myanmar, especially in northern Shan State, the death of a regiment leader is not common, but it is not a big deal. It's just that because northern Shan State has been peaceful for so long, this matter seems so big. I mean, it's a big deal, it's just that not enough people died. Since we have already killed Chen Chen, why don't we kill all the Chen family members?" Chen Chen was stunned, and Shidakai was also stunned. Only Bao Qi said excitedly, "Yes, why didn't I think of it just now? We still have to deal with the person who caused the risk, but the person who caused the risk was not the expert investigation team sent by the military commission, but Chen Yimin himself. As long as we kill him and Chen Jiashu, all the Chen family members will be gone. Who will bother us then?" Hearing Bao Qi's words, Chen Chen subconsciously rolled his eyes and wanted to refute. But suddenly, he felt that this matter could really be handled in this way. Bao Qi's idea was very simple. As he said, if you can't solve the problem, then solve the person who caused the trouble. Li Bang's idea is relatively simple. He thinks that if one person dies, then death. If the whole family dies, then death is also death. Making a big deal out of this matter will actually be safer for the Dongfeng Corps. The thinking of these two people is a bit abnormal, but it is from this abnormality that an extremely reasonable conclusion is born. That is, killing the Chen family is indeed a good way to put an end to things completely, and it is the best way. From Chen Chen's omniscient perspective, there are two very critical factors involved. First, under the impetus of the 756th Brigade, Southern Shan State is likely to become chaotic in the short term. Second, following Hua State, the negotiations between Northern Shan State and Myanmar have also entered a critical period. What remain unresolved are a series of specific implementation issues regarding autonomy and the form of retention of military power. Chen Yimin's misfortune was that, as the military commander of one of the three brigades in Northern Shan State, he was the only one who was unwilling to accept Myanmar's National Guard reorganization plan. In this case, his situation is extremely delicate. The more chaotic the situation in Southern Shan State, the more eager Myanmar will be to complete peace talks and reorganization with Northern Shan State. And the more urgent they are, the more they want to reduce resistance in the negotiations. The more I want to reduce resistance, the more Chen Yimin deserves to die. Yes, I'm definitely not the only one who wants him dead, but some people dare not act due to power. Some are concerned about the situation and cannot act, and some are not capable enough to act. What you can't do, I will do. Chen Chen's thoughts suddenly became clear, and he quickly realized that killing the Chen family would only benefit him, not harm him. On the one hand, the 7th Brigade only has a useful relationship with him. Unlike the Jackals, with whom he has a close relationship, there is no psychological pressure at all to deal with them. On the other hand, Chen Chen's death is always a bomb. Even if there is no expert group, it will be exposed one day and blow itself to ashes. Finally, although my own and the Dongfeng Corps have a small number of people, their influence has gradually been established. Sooner or later, the Dongfeng Corps will have to get rid of its mercenary identity and officially step to the forefront. A military commander who always wants to control himself and has no willingness to cooperate will be extremely detrimental to the development of the Dongfeng Corps. It would be better to reshuffle the situation and replace them with a group of new people. What? What if it's still the same after washing? Then wash it again. Wash until you are satisfied. Chen Chen smiled, but at the same time felt a little regretful. Well, I was too timid before, thinking that a brigade commander was an important figure after all, so I should not do anything if I could. Otherwise, when killing Chen Chen, we should kill all three of them together. But of course, it's not too late now. Chen Yimin, why do you have to commit suicide? Chen Chen shook his head, dispelling the unnecessary thoughts in his mind, and then patted Li Bang's shoulder approvingly and said, "You always come up with something new for me." After hearing what Li Bang said, Shidakai, who had been frowning and thinking, also spoke. "This is really the best strategy we can choose. If something goes wrong, we can even blame it on Myanmar. That's right. We need someone to take the blame, and Lao Mian is the perfect person to do it. It should if it's not yellow mud in your pants." Plus, the 7th Brigade was not on good terms with the Burmese, which led to differences between them and the entire military commission and the prefectural committee. Once this hat is put on them, even if the expert group really finds something, Chen Yimin is likely to think that they're just trying to be peacemakers and looking for scapegoats. It's so safe for us to do it. Oh shit. Worrying about defeat before thinking about victory. Shirdakai's talent was once again fully demonstrated. He even thought about how the Dongfeng Corps would make things right if the assassination attempt on Chen Yimin failed. Moreover, the plan he proposed was really very practical. Talent. Chen Chen took a deep breath and said, "Then we can draw a conclusion, right?" "Can." The other three answered in unison, their voices extremely firm. "Okay, then our plan is to kill all the Chen family members and leave no key figures alive. We still have 2 wounded soldiers, Bao Qi and Shidakai. You two should not participate in the operation. Li Bang, Lin He and I will carry out the operation. In the next few days, we must first complete the preliminary intelligence gathering, formulate a comprehensive action plan, and prepare equipment for our operation. These tasks can be completed in Mungka, because we will definitely go to Mungka for on-site investigation. Time is of the essence. We have to be quick. Considering that the expert team's investigation will take some time after their arrival, our mission cycle can be set at 2 weeks. That is to say, within 2 weeks, the 7th Brigade will be in a state of flux." Chen Chen spoke calmly, but after hearing his words, the other 3 people showed excited expressions. They had long known that Chen Chen was going to do great things, but they had never thought that this day would come so soon. It had only been a short time, and they were actually going to clash with one of the biggest forces in this place. Of course, it was not a head-on collision, but just a conspiracy behind the scenes. But no matter what, being able to influence the situation in a place is something only a true hero can do. Chen Chen is such a hero. Kill Chen Yimin and replace him? No, of course it's not the right time yet, because the strength of the Dongfeng Corps is not enough for them to come to the fore. But they all believe that this day will come. Moreover, all conclusions will be quickly passed, and Chen Chen's heart will finally be completely settled. Looking back at the development of things now, he suddenly realized that many things had actually been foreshadowed long ago. Just like a snowy mountain, under the endless blizzards day and night, it has accumulated too much energy. At this moment, perhaps just a tiny disturbance, such as Chen Chen's stupid behavior on a whim, would lead to an unstoppable avalanche. An avalanche carrying tremendous force rolls down, and no one can escape. The only way to survive is to run along the direction of the avalanche. The death of the Chen family was not my fault, but the sin of the actual war. At this time, Chen Yimin, who was far away in Myanmar, did not know that while he had the intention to kill the Dongfeng Corps and planned to kill them resolutely after testing and using them, the Dongfeng Corps' intention to kill him had already been so intense that it burned like a flame. After determining the goal, Chen Chen immediately began to formulate a specific implementation plan. The first thing he did was to go to the battlefield near Nayang village again under the cover of night and find a way to get rid of the last traces. Afterwards, he tried to retrieve the M24 he had thrown away. After all, he had already decided to fall out, so why bother about evidence? This gun was not easy to get in northern Myanmar. Even if he didn't use it, he could still make a lot of money by selling it. But unfortunately, he really didn't find the gun. It was probably taken away by a passing farmer. After dealing with all this, Chen Chen went straight to sleep to rest. After waking up, he pretended to think for a long time and be very embarrassed, and rejected the investigation task from Chen Yimin that was conveyed by Jackal as the middleman. On the phone, Jackal said earnestly, "Sinking ship, you must understand your situation clearly. If you need to do something, you must do it cleanly and neatly, and don't leave any handle for others to attack you. You know, I warned you a long time ago that the people in the 7th Brigade are not as simple as you think. They want you to investigate this time, not because they really trust you. It can even be said that this is a test. Although I don't know what happened between you, I can tell you responsibly that Chen Yimin wants to kill you. In short, since you have refused, you must be prepared to bear the consequences. Do your own thing and try to think of a way to reassure them." There was a mystery hidden in his words. In fact, these few short sentences also hinted at his own guess. There was no need to elaborate. Chen Chen did not refute or explain, but asked an equally obscure question. "I'll pay attention to this. Don't worry. But having said that, I have one more thing I want to ask you. So your business in Myanmar is not going well, right? You have a lot of regulations, and the source of the regulatory requirements is not the head office, but Thailand." As soon as these words were spoken, the Jackal fell silent. After a long while, he replied, "Yes." Everything was implied, and Chen Chen immediately confirmed Chaseley's attitude. He had always wondered why an arms dealer would have so many restrictions on the sale of some equipment. Many things without American elements are not subject to the US's long-arm jurisdiction principle. Although those truly controlled things cannot be sold to Myanmar, if they're sold to northern Myanmar, the US should be happy to see it succeed. So, the crux of the problem is that the Myanmar government does not allow certain equipment to flow into northern Myanmar, and the Thai side must consider their requests. But what if the situation in northern Myanmar changes? What if those diehards who fight to the end actually die? By then, we will all be family, so buying some small gadgets will not be a big deal. Therefore, Chaseley will not reject change. The last risk has been eliminated. Chen Chen didn't talk much with Jackal. After hanging up the phone, he immediately started to prepare. The injured Shir Dakai and Bao Chi could not move, so it was much safer for them to stay in Mengbin than to go back to Mungka. Li Bang and Lin here are the helpers he must take away, so how to ensure the safety of these two people becomes a problem. Chen Chen's only choice was to hire a mercenary team in Mengbin City, but he was not familiar with the mercenaries in Mengbin, so he had to issue an open mission bounty through Chaseley's limited connections here. His original intention was to find a mercenary group that could fight against the Lion Legion to prevent possible retaliation from the other side. But he didn't expect that the development of the matter was completely beyond his expectations, because the Lion Corps came directly to apply for the job. Looking at the thin but muscular man in front of him, Chen Chen gripped the handle of the pistol vigilantly and asked, "Are you really here to apply?" The latter nodded calmly and replied, "Of course. Do I look like I'm here for revenge? It's over now. The compensation you paid was generous and your sincerity was great. Do you think a mercenary group like us would be so stingy with money? To be honest, it's a huge bargain. In Mengbin City, you actually hired people to protect your team members. Isn't it to protect us? I saw the mission and thought about it carefully. It would be better for us to earn the money ourselves instead of letting others make it. Without a middleman making a profit, it's good for both you and me, isn't it?" Chen Chen was speechless for a moment. The reasons given by the other party were so convincing that he could not refute them. But of course, he wouldn't let his guard down so easily. He began to speak. "Your leader is dead. I killed him. This makes me unable to trust you." Hearing his words, the man spread his hands indifferently and replied, "Whatever you want, I'm just standing here to see if I can pick up some quick money. But before you make a decision, I have two things to say. First, mercenaries cannot kill their employers. This is the most basic principle. The consequences of breaking this principle are far more serious than the death of the leader. Second, our previous battles were purely driven by profit. Now that the mission is over, all the costs we paid are sunk costs and will not be considered in subsequent missions. Can you understand what I mean by that?" "I understand." Chen Chen nodded slightly. The man's statement opposite him really made him see the light. As expected of a first-rate mercenary group, they are not only professional in combat, but also in their conduct. These two simple sentences clearly analyze Chen Chen's current situation. Of course, their motive of protection fees is also whitewashed to make it sound noble. But this is indeed a good idea. So Chen Chen asked, "What price can you accept?" 50,000 US dollars for 2 weeks. Okay, but what else would I be doing here? My request is that you must really protect them instead of just taking the money and walking away. Chen Chen emphasized, "That's another price. To be honest, 50,000 US dollars only costs 2,500 per person for our team members. It will delay us for 2 weeks. This is a bit too much for us. Although we have lost half of our forces to you, this situation is not uncommon in our past experiences. Our combat effectiveness will not be weakened, but will only become stronger." The man's words sounded arrogant, but Chen Chen saw the core hidden in them that he wanted to pursue. Don't be afraid of casualties. As long as the organization is there, the flag will still be there. This is indeed the quality that a mercenary group with a long history and super strong combat power should have. However, being able to bargain like this really shows that this guy is really here to collect protection money. After thinking for a moment, Chen Chen said, "Increase it to 100,000, but I have one condition. You have to give me a priority. That is, after this mission, if I have another mission, you have to take mine first. If the benefits are the same, I'll take yours first, regardless of the difficulty." The man answered without hesitation, and it was obvious that he was very familiar with this process. Reasonable deal. Chen Chen extended his hand to the man, and the man immediately reached out and shook it. "Just call me White Dog, Mr. Shipwreck. Happy cooperation. It's been a pleasure working with you." After settling Bao Qi and Shi Dakai, Chen Chen began his next preparation. Compared with the previous assassination of Chen Shinha, he had more time this time, so he had more options to choose from. In fact, to kill a person, it is definitely not just about the so-called standard assassination methods such as sniping, slitting the throat with a knife, poisoning, etc. If guns can't kill them, use cannons. If cannons can't kill them, use roadside bombs. If roadside bombs can't kill them, use dump trucks to hit them. If the dump trucks can't kill them, use semi-trailers with full insurance. In short, use every possible means, which is the style of real combat troops. How did the Americans kill those key targets back then? They didn't arrange snipers to lie in wait for 3 days and 3 nights, and then hit the target with one shot. Instead, they directly used thermobaric bombs and bunker buster bombs. In this respect, Chen Chen felt that their style was worth learning. But of course, what to use specifically depends on the actual situation. Now Chen Yimin and Chen Jiashu are both frightened birds. They will most likely hide in the military camp and not show up. It is impossible to complete the assassination with close-range means. The best way is to choose equipment that can output firepower from a long distance and ensure the kill rate. Therefore, after considering various factors, Chen Chen finally screened out several available options. The first is the individual soldier's fuel air bomb bombing. This thing can be said to be a powerful weapon for breaking through obstacles. It has a strong ability to break through and overcome obstacles, and its killing effect on indoor targets is especially amazing. Because its principle is to spray the fuel near the target and then ignite it to form a big explosion. The radius of this explosion can reach more than 20 meters, and its power is equivalent to dozens of times that of the same volume of explosives. It will produce a strong shock wave that spreads everywhere in a short period of time, and will also generate high temperatures of up to 2,500 degrees. Anyone who gets touched will die. Anyone who touches it will melt. No living target can withstand such damage. It is perfect for carrying out this mission. The only problem is that this thing is a little difficult to get. If you buy it through the wooden ghost, it will be easy to be exposed. If you buy it through the jackal, you may not be able to bypass the control. Therefore, Chen Chen also developed a backup plan, which was to drop napalm bombs. The launcher can be refined by modifying the previous gas tank cannon, which can be regarded as making the best use of it. The disadvantage of this plan is that it is, after all, homemade equipment, and its stability is questionable. If an attack fails, it will be extremely difficult to find another opportunity. To solve this problem, we have to launch multiple missiles at one time to increase the fault tolerance rate. But in that case, the risk of exposure will increase, which is not perfect. But of course, perfect and usable are two different things, and what Chen Chen pursues is only usability. In addition to these two relatively normal options, Chen Chen also considered relatively less reliable options such as paragliding airstrikes, M82A1 sniping, remote-controlled suicide truck assaults, etc. as backups. Generally speaking, he has almost figured out all the slightly reliable plans. As for which table Chen Yimin will eat at in the end, it depends on him. After all the plans were ready, Chen Chen rented a new car and headed for Minka. However, before entering Minka, he had to go to Wanpangsang Mountain first to recover the warrior vehicles that had not been recovered before. At the same time, in the barracks of the 7th Brigade, Chen Yimin and Chen Jiashu sat opposite each other, their serious expressions revealing obvious murderous intent, and what they were discussing was Chen Chen's latest reply. The fact that the shipwreck refused the mission this time is actually quite suspicious. His reason is that the Dongfeng Corps has lost too many personnel and is now inadequate in terms of capabilities. But the problem is that we only want them to participate in the tracking and do not intend to ask them to take on the main combat mission. His refusal made me feel like he was trying to avoid it. Or was he deliberately trying to stay out of it? This is very unusual. Brother, do you have a feeling that Shen Chuan may have guessed the relationship between the man he killed and the He family of the 756th Brigade? Very likely. Hearing Chen Jiashu's words, Chen Yimin nodded slowly, and then continued. Sinking ship is a very smart and cautious man, and he also has a strong sense of danger in some matters. The 756th Brigade's delay in not participating in the battle is itself very abnormal. It is simply not possible to explain it with the previous reason of picking fruits. He will definitely wonder why this happened, and will definitely shift the focus of his suspicion to Shinha, because in this mission, Shinha is the only character who has the ability to pry open such a contradiction. So, his motive to kill Shinha was actually very strong. He couldn't allow someone to threaten his life in this way. In fact, I thought from the beginning that Chen Chen would take revenge. Do you remember that I said I would find other reasons to get rid of him? But I didn't expect that before we did anything, others would take action first. Speaking of this, Chen Chen couldn't help but sigh. At this moment, he suddenly understood his brother better. I always say that I should think more and be cautious and prudent, but in fact, some things really cannot be slowed down. Looking at his expression, Chen Jiashu couldn't help but feel sympathetic. After frowning and thinking for a while, he asked, but I really can't figure out how he did it. Was he not the only one who attacked the lion army? It doesn't make sense. Why wasn't that person caught? Time difference. He played with time difference. There were 2 attackers. He rushed back after killing Shinhe. His teammates held him back for 2 hours. Finally, he showed up. Chen Chen analyzed. His conclusion accurately hit Chen Chen's actual process, except that he wanted to replace teammate support with remote control attack. Reasonable. Chen Jiashu nodded slightly. Then there is almost no dispute about this matter. In addition, he refused to accept the investigation mission. In any case, he has now become the most suspicious person besides the 756th Brigade. Do you want to kill him? We've already killed a lot of suspects, so one more won't make a difference. Kill him, Chen Chen said without hesitation. It doesn't matter if he's the murderer or not, as long as he's a suspect. We would rather kill someone by mistake than let him go. This is for our own safety. He has no roots here, so let him die. The only thing I regret now is that I let him die too slowly. I was blinded by his value. Actually, if you think about it carefully, there is really no need for someone like him to continue living. Notify them, get ready, and find a reasonable reason to kill him. Chen Chen also took the main road from Tongyi Avenue to Mingyang Highway, but before reaching Minka, he turned near Dabong and took a small road that crossed the mountains. This path was paved or trodden by a small manganese mining company near Dabong. The road conditions are very poor and cars move very slowly, but it is safe because it is sparsely populated. Choosing this path means being cautious. After all, Chen Chen has already decided to kill Chen Chen. So according to the most basic hypothetical principle, he must set a baseline in his mind, which is, the other party also wants to kill him. Only with such judgment can he achieve his goals in the most stable and safe way, and avoid being at a loss when faced with various emergencies in the process as much as possible. It took a full 4 hours for the 3 to finally reach the abandonment point on Wanpangsang Mountain and retrieve their own warrior vehicle. Before abandoning the car, they hid it very well, but of course, it was impossible not to be discovered by the pursuers behind. However, the situation was special at that time, and no one drove the car away. When the fighting broke out later, the Piaoying, Jiaoyuoja, and Lion Corps were all defeated, and they were too lazy to take the car away. The reason is very simple. If you lose, there will be no spoils of war. If you take them now, they will come back and ask you for them. Will you give them back then? So you might as well not touch them. In this situation, except for some mud, water, and leaves on the car, the condition of the car was basically unchanged. He turned the key and started the car. Chen Chen stepped on the accelerator deeply, and the warrior jumped out from the bunker. Lin He, who was sitting in the car, seemed a little nervous. His hands were tightly grasping the frame above the window, and his eyes were staring straight ahead, as if he was afraid that he would be thrown out. Chen Chen found this a little funny, so he asked, "What's wrong? Are you carsick? Didn't you notice it before?" Lin He shook his head and replied, "No, I seldom take the bus. This is my 3rd time. The first time I rode it was when my mother died." Chen Chen opened his mouth in astonishment, but quickly realized that this was the most normal situation. Although there are many cars in Minka City, not everyone can afford one. Ordinary farmers in the surrounding villages either walk or ride motorcycles or bicycles. At most, they can ride a 3-wheeled car. How can they have the chance to ride a 4-wheel vehicle? In fact, let alone him, even in my previous life when I grew up in the countryside, it was the first time I left the village to go to the county town to attend junior high school, and it was the first time I took a long-distance bus. The life of a truly poor person is sometimes not just poverty, but more of a barrenness. There is an invisible, transparent high wall between them and the normal world, isolating them from the normal order of society. Many things that seem ordinary to ordinary people are really just a look for them. Lenny, who has never taken a car, Li Bang, who has never eaten good food, the college students who don't know how to take a high-speed train or a plane, and the rural children who go to Starbucks with thousands of dollars in cash are essentially the same, but they differ in degree. But think about it from another perspective. Who hasn't been through this? If you can't get it, you grab it. If you can't reach it, you jump up. Anyway, you have a miserable life in a broken place like northern Myanmar. It's really uncertain who can fight who. So Chen Chen said, if you haven't ridden in a car before, get used to it quickly. After this is over, you will not only have to ride in a car, but you will also have to learn how to drive. You will be exposed to a lot of things, and time is very limited. We don't have time for you to slowly go through the adaptation period. So now, put your hands down and don't be afraid. Remember, fear means death. Hearing his words, Lin He nodded silently and solemnly, then put his hand down resolutely. The road was still bumpy for the next section of the journey. Even with his seatbelt fastened, Chen Chen was still jumping up and down in the car as he sprinted at full throttle, and even hit his head on the top of the car frame several times. However, his hands were always placed on his chest, tightly gripping the Type 81 rifle issued to him, and he never reached towards the frame, not even an inch. 2 hours later, the trio arrived at the outskirts of Munka. Chen Chen did not hesitate, but stepped on the accelerator, crossed the wooden bridge west of Munka City, continued forward, and returned to his residence. In fact, the safest approach would be to stay at the camp in Chasley. Because even if Chen Chen or the 7th Brigade really wanted to take action against them, they would have to consider the pressure from Chasley, and it would be impossible for them to force their way into their camp. For the Dongfeng Corps, it is a safe house. Once they enter, all the troubles in the outside world have nothing to do with them. However, such safe houses are not available at all times. No matter how good a friend Jackal is, he can't abandon the interests of the group. As long as Chen Chen has ideas about Chen Chen, he can't have too much contact with Chen Chen. Unless the Chen family is really killed. By that time, Chasley could openly provide shelter for the Dongfeng Corps, and even fight against other forces for the Dongfeng Corps. To put it bluntly, you still have to demonstrate your own value. Well, fight out or kill out. After arriving at his residence, Chen Chen did not enter the house immediately, but first checked the alarm devices he had set up. After confirming that none of them had been triggered, he opened the gate and parked the car inside. After parking the car, Li Bang did not go in, but took Lin He with him and walked to the blind spot near the wall very professionally to conduct a covert observation of the exterior of the building. The purpose of doing this is to confirm whether there are any people or vehicles following them. These are the experiences Chen Chen taught them before, and they have learned them well. Looking at Li Bang's actions, Chen Chen nodded with satisfaction. He walked to the back of the warrior car, holding a gun in one hand and taking out a wall-penetrating detector in the other, bypassing the gate and scanning the building from the left side. That it was this action that saved his life. Of course, with the wall detector, he couldn't see any inactive objects, but you can see through the gap in the curtains. After confirming that there was no one inside, he leaned out of the window to take a look at the living room. At first glance, nothing unusual was found, but he felt something was wrong, so he took a second look, and at this glance, he discovered the key to the problem. The location of the marble jadeite that Shi Dakai bought has changed. Someone entered the residence of the Dongfeng Corps, and perhaps out of curiosity, picked up the stone that was extremely conspicuous and out of place on the table in the living room, looked at it for a few seconds, and when putting it back, he put it in the wrong direction. Oh shit, being targeted so soon? Chen Chen felt a little ashamed at first. After all, he was going to kill the whole family. But now, Chen Chen, you dare to say you don't want to kill me? Retreat quickly, Chen Chen shouted loudly. Li Bang turned around, paused for less than half a second, and then pulled Lin He towards the car. At this time, Chen Chen had also jumped into the back seat, the car started, and he stepped on the accelerator. Just as he turned onto the street and drove less than 10 meters away, a loud noise suddenly came from behind him. Boom! The air waves spread instantly, and debris flew everywhere. But because of the blocking of the wall, the three people did not suffer direct harm after all. Looking back, the gate of the entire building had completely collapsed into ruins. 10 seconds. From the time Chen Chen reacted, to the time they fled in the car, to the time the bomb exploded, it took a total of 10 seconds. Someone must be watching. And the way they triggered the bomb was by remote control over the phone. Chen Chen's face was gloomy. My caution really saved my life. If Li Bang hadn't moved away from the room and closer to the wall, causing the three people to be separated, and if he hadn't walked to the side to take a look before entering the room, causing the stalker to make a delayed judgment, all three of them would be dead now. Chen Chen, cruel enough. But, you're playing IED with me? You're really looking down on me. Okay. Then I will teach you how to really kill someone. Let's go first. No matter what the situation is. Let's get out of Myanmar first. Sitting in the back seat of the warrior, Chen Chen spoke to Li Bang anxiously. And after hearing his words, Li Bang stepped on the accelerator without hesitation and sped towards the Nanluo Bridge. It only took the warriors 2 minutes to cross the Nanluo Bridge. Fortunately, they were not blocked by anyone. But Chen Chen would never think that this meant that this attack had nothing to do with the 7th Brigade or Chen Chen. Perhaps they simply had not had time to deploy defenses at the Nanluo Bridge. Since this explosion, the situation has completely changed. No matter what reasons Chen Chen finds to cover up the truth and explain that this attack was just an accident, the conflict between the Dongfeng Corps and the 7th Brigade has been forced to be exposed. Because the explosion occurred in Myanmar City. In Myanmar City, where guns cannot be fired unless there are special circumstances, even IEDs have appeared. Isn't this enough to explain the problem? The warrior car sped along, and Chen Chen looked at the road behind him vigilantly, never putting down the 416 Hong Kong dollars in his hand. He was extremely nervous at this moment because he knew that the 7th Brigade, once it reacted, would most likely give up and no longer care about the interests of the various forces here, and would try to completely blockade the entire Myanmar. If that was the case, there was no need to consider escaping. It would be too unlucky to try to get into the jungle and fight a guerrilla war with them. The 7th Brigade is indeed a team that was formed in the flames of war. Regardless of the quality of the ordinary soldiers, at least Chen Chen is absolutely worthy of his current position. The attack was ruthless, the action was resolute, and the prediction was accurate. If anyone says that the warlords in northern Myanmar are a bunch of brainless fools, Chen Chen will be the first to disagree. Being targeted by such an opponent, the pressure is much greater than that of the Lion Legion. Chen frowned silently and let out a slight sigh. This sigh is both helpless and regretful. Unfortunately, the current Dongfeng Corps is really too weak. It was okay in peacetime, and it could make a living by maneuvering between several forces. But once we enter an extraordinary period and once we are targeted by those truly powerful forces, it becomes really difficult to find a way to survive. As for regret, there is only one reason. I'm still killing too slowly. The wind starts from the tip of the green reed, and the waves form from the ripples. In fact, before the conflict between the two sides broke out completely, I had already captured many details that hinted at the final outcome of both sides. For example, after Chen Jiashu aborted Wan Hinai, he expressed his concern through Peng Shuqing, but he did not take the initiative to contact him. For example, Chen Chen once treated himself as a subordinate, but he threw himself into the arms of Chase Li. For another example, Chen Chen hinted that he wanted to integrate the Dongfeng Corps into their team and let them participate in the operation against the Wanqi camp, but he refused without hesitation. All of this clearly hinted at the difference in the paths of both sides. But I always had a hopeful hope and thought that I could get a better position with my own abilities. What is the reality? What the hell is fighting for? The only outcome is a fight to the death. The warlords in northern Myanmar are more terrifying than he imagined. Be sure to learn from this lesson. Chun silently memorized the lesson in his heart and promised himself that if he had to cooperate with the warlords in the future, he would make his value completely surpass theirs and make himself the master of everything. While he was thinking this, the warrior car finally passed Yangfazai and drove out of the core control area of the 7th Brigade. For now, it's safe. Chen Chen breathed a sigh of relief and said to Li Bang, "Drive the car to Dabin. We'll rest there." Dabong is located between Mungka and Jingdong and is actually under the jurisdiction of Jingdong. Although its geographical location is not dangerous, its geopolitical location is quite sensitive, because this is one of the dividing points between North Shan State and South Shan State. No matter how brave you are, Chen Chen, you wouldn't dare to send a large force here, right? If you have the guts, come and fight the SSAS and see if the 756th Brigade can give you 2 big slaps in the face. Understood. About 20 kilometers, 15 minutes to get there. Li Bang answered, and Lin He, who was sitting in the passenger seat, interrupted. "I know where we can cross the river. There are only a few families left in Dabong. We can go to Wanong to rest." "Wanong? Where is that place?" Chen Chen asked. "It's a small village with a dozen households. It's in a valley, very secluded." "Is it far from Dabin?" 2 kilometers, there's a way to get there." "Then let's go to Wanong." Chen Chen made a prompt decision. If he doubted someone, he would not employ him. If he employed someone, he would not doubt him. At this time, he would rather choose to trust Lin He's judgment. 10 minutes later, under the guidance of Lin He, the warrior car crossed the river beach and drove into a road that seemed almost non-existent to Chen Chen. Then, after driving along the weed-covered dirt road for another 10 minutes, the isolated village at the mouth of Lin He appeared in front of Chen Chen. Instead of entering the village, the few people parked the car in a secluded place and then camped beside the car to rest. While the other two were setting up the camp and shelter, Chen Chen climbed up the hillside, took out his satellite phone, and called Chen Min's number. The phone rang for more than 10 times before it was connected. Chen Chen did not keep the question secret, but said directly, "Brigade Commander Chen, we were attacked in Mungka today. It was a remote control bomb. I want to know who was trying to make things difficult for us and why. You should know the situation, right? So, can you tell me?" Chen Min on the other end of the phone had almost no hesitation or delay. The moment Chen Chen finished speaking, he shouted angrily, "I just heard about it too. These people are truly lawless. How dare they do such a thing in my territory?" "Sunken, don't worry. I will definitely give you an explanation for this matter. Go back to Mungka first and come directly to the military camp. The 7th Brigade will ensure your safety. The situation is very chaotic right now. As you know, someone must be behind Shen's death. It's very likely that they are the same people who attacked you. We must work together to find them out." His voice was so sincere, so firm, and so calm. There was even a moment when Chen Chen almost believed what he said. What if it was really an accident? What if I was just overthinking it? However, this thought did not last more than half a second, because his intuition discovered the loophole in Chen Min's words earlier than his sensibility. "Go back to Mungka? How the hell did you know I'm not in Mungka anymore?" "Okay, it's confirmed." Chen Chen let out a long sigh and said calmly, "Brigade Commander Chen, I'm already in Jingdong. I don't dare to go back to Mungka. Let's wait until the situation stabilizes a little bit. I hope your problem can be solved as soon as possible, which will be good for both of us." After hearing Chen Chen's answer, Chen Min was silent for a moment. Then he opened his mouth and answered, "No problem. Tell me where you are in Jingdong, and I'll see if there's anyone I know who can be sent over to protect you. I'm near the airport at the Satina Hotel." "Okay, I'll find someone to go over there. Wait for me." With a click, the phone was hung up and a sarcastic smile appeared on Chen Chen's face. "You are all 1,000-year-old foxes, and you are still playing strange stories from a Chinese studio with me?" He shook his head and continued to dial the Jackal's number. And at this time, there was no need for him to hide anything anymore. "The 7th Brigade is trying to kill us, and I've gone into hiding," Chen Chen said without any preparation. "That I guessed it, but I didn't guess they would do it now. Don't come to Mungka for the time being. If you need any equipment, I will arrange for someone to send it to Jingdong. You can find time to pick it up yourself. Remember, don't tell anyone the location or the time you want to pick up the goods. This is the difference between an ally and an enemy. Even if they can trust each other, the Jackal will never try to find out Chen Chen's current location." "Understood. Contact me later regarding the equipment. Almost all of my previous plans will be scrapped, and the equipment will also need to be changed. I just want to confirm one thing. Jia has been delivered. Has our equipment sharing rights come into effect?" "It takes effect," the Jackal answered immediately, but then added, "But we can only provide the equipment. Everything else depends on you. If you're not sure, run. Once Southern Shan State is in chaos, your chances will increase. It won't be too late to fight back and return to Mungka then. Remember, there is hope only when you are alive. Leave me alone." Chen Chen replied, "You're fucking hanging up? Call me before 6 p.m., and I'll arrange for the equipment to be delivered before midnight. Remember, don't die. You are very useful." After hanging up the phone, Chen Chen returned to the warrior car. At this time, Lin had already led Li Bang to quickly build a hidden camp that in this regard, no one in the Dongfeng Corps could compare with him. It was still early, so there was no need to light a fire. The three of them sat together, and Chen Chen said with a serious expression, "The situation has changed. The other party is more ruthless than we expected. We can even say that they are almost as ruthless as us. We haven't been completely exposed yet. Chen should be treating us as suspects, and their principle is to rather kill the wrong person than let the wrong person go. So, this means that they are now on the highest level of defense against us. We must abandon our original reconnaissance plan. Close-in reconnaissance is completely impossible. As long as we appear in Myanmar, we will definitely be targeted. Therefore, there is a high probability that we will be able to assassinate the Chen family without any support from the latest intelligence. Based on this premise, we must be prepared for the assassination to fail, because the difficulty of this mission will be unprecedented. We have no intelligence advantage, no troop advantage, and not even an equipment advantage. The more he spoke, the more Chen Chen's heart sank. Is it difficult? It's really difficult. In fact, after humans entered the era of hot weapons, the difficulty of decapitation operations has continued to increase. There are only a handful of operations that can be considered truly successful, and even fewer that can be considered excellent examples. Among them, the most typical examples include the US's Operation Neptune Spear against the Walker, the SAS Harvest operation in Raqqa, Syria, and the top-secret operation against Dudiev jointly carried out by the Russian GRU and FSB. But without exception, in these operations, the attackers achieved success with comprehensive crushing of equipment, intelligence, and combat systems. The only documented decapitation operation that achieved stunning results despite being completely unfavorable in many aspects dates back more than 50 years ago. That is a surprise attack on the White Tiger Regiment. In that operation, 13 scouts attacked the enemy's ACE unit headquarters at night, annihilated more than 200 enemies, killed more than 70 officers, and finally all escaped unscathed, which could be called a miracle in the history of hot weapons warfare. But the question is, why is it a miracle? Of course, it's because it can't be replicated. Chen Chen's face turned ugly. He really needed a similar miracle, but he couldn't get it. At this moment, Lenny suddenly said, I can go for reconnaissance. You. Chen Chen frowned and subconsciously wanted to refuse, but he suddenly realized that this seemed to be the only chance. Lenny had just joined the Dongfeng Corps, and no one in Myanmar City had ever seen him. If he went to scout, there would be no risk of being exposed. The only question is, does he even know what reconnaissance is? Thinking of this, he asked, do you know what to do? I know. Lenny nodded firmly, and then said, we need to observe the range where the prey appears, and figure out where it will stay and what route it will take. At the same time, you also have to choose the right location to hunt, such as where to place traps, from what angle to shoot, and where to hide. The most important thing is to keep an eye on the escape route. If the prey goes crazy, you need to have a way to escape. Chen Chen's eyes lit up when he heard Lin He's words. Yes, there really isn't much difference between reconnaissance during hunting and reconnaissance during assassination operations. Isn't my target essentially another form of prey? Although Lin He has not received systematic training, his concealed identity, coupled with his experience in hunting, should be more than enough to complete a close-range camouflage reconnaissance. Damn, I knew I didn't hire this guy in vain. Chen Chen was very excited. He looked at Lin He and asked, do you know where to stay in Minka? I mean, you can't act like an idle refugee. You have to give yourself a purpose. No problem. I've been to Minka to sell things many times. I know the owner of the business. I can go to Wanong to collect some skins, or even some game, and then take them to Minka to sell. I can probably stay in Minka for 3 days. If there is no result in 3 days, then I will come back. Reasonable. Chen Chen nodded slightly, then asked, do you know what the target looks like? Have no idea. Lenny shook his head honestly, but before Chen Chen could feel disappointed, he spoke again. But I can find them, as long as you tell me their approximate characteristics. People like them are different from ordinary people. I can recognize them without even seeing their faces. After Lin He's reconnaissance plan was finalized, the trio immediately began to carry out the preliminary steps of the reconnaissance plan. That is, to enter Wanong village and purchase goods for Lin He that could be resold to Munka. The process went extremely smoothly. They got several of the dumb chickens that Lin He had mentioned before, a monkey tied with an iron chain, and a bunch of herbs picked from the mountains. The reason for configuring the types of goods in this way is actually for one main purpose, which is to extend the time that Lin He can stay in Munka. Dumb chickens are a popular variety and will be sold out quickly once they are put out. Herbs are common goods and can increase rationality. Monkeys are often sold, but often cannot be sold, so they can take the longest time. To sum up, Lenny had enough reasons to stay in Munka City and enough time to observe and obtain information. Everything was ready. Lenny set off immediately, and Chen Chen also started his actions simultaneously. On the one hand, he contacted the Jackal and asked for the PF-89 rocket launcher equipped with individual thermobaric bombs, 107 fire, javelin, listening system, ballistic calculator, mobile phone, various high explosives, a large number of balloons, gliders, and various other minor equipment. It took him about 20 minutes just to describe all the equipment and requirements. After recording everything, Jackal was silent for a few seconds, then said, the 107 fire can be obtained, but the javelin is completely impossible. I will transfer the PF-89 to you from Maysot, but it will take time, at least 1 day, and conservatively estimated to be about 2 days. The listening system and ballistic calculator are ready, no problem. Can't you take care of the other mess yourself? I don't have time, Chen Chen said bluntly. Please leave the interception system in Munka. Someone will contact you to pick it up, teach him how to use it, and then ask him to bring me the ballistic calculator. Don't you have javelins? Why don't you give them to me? I paid for them. If I have it, I'll give it to you. Who are you? The Jackal sputtered. What if I have to? Then I can't give it to you even if you insist. This is a strictly controlled equipment, controlled by 3 parties at the same time. I really can't give it to you. Besides, you don't have time? What are you going to do? We've come to this point, sync your plans with me, The Jackal's tone left no room for doubt, and Chen Chen no longer acted pretentiously. He knew that this decision might not be the decision of the entire Chaizili, but it was definitely the decision of the Chaizili Northern Myanmar branch, and even more so the decision of Jackal personally. And now that he has clearly agreed to provide the equipment, it means that he is on board. In this case, both parties should share information at the most basic level. But Chen Chen will not be careless. He opened his mouth and answered, I'm going to Jingdong. I just talked to Chen Chen on the phone and told him that I will wait for him at the Sathina Hotel in Jingdong, but I will definitely not go there. If they want to send someone to kill me, they will definitely pass through the Mengla Highway, and I will ambush them there. Are you crazy? What good will this do you? You should hide now and kill with one strike. Without intelligence, how can you deliver a fatal blow? Chen Chen asked back. The people who dare to send to Jingdong must be his elite private soldiers. He can't just send out a mission and hire a mercenary group to attack me. I want to capture him alive and find out about Chen Yimin's current situation. It would be best if I could also find out about the deployment of the military camp. You want to attack the military camp? The worst possible outcome. This is the only thing we can do. I will bring in the Lion Army. There are 2,000 men in the barracks. It's okay. Most of them are trash. Positional warfare is fine, but 2,000 people can't catch a few rats that sneaked in. Hearing this, the Jackal breathed a sigh of relief. I see. You mean the surprise attack on the White Tiger Regiment? You are indeed Chinese. You knew that already, didn't you? The two said no more and hung up the phone. Chen Chen immediately relayed the new task to Lin He. Afterwards, the three members of the team set off separately. Chen Chen and Li Bang drove directly onto Mingyang Highway and rushed towards Jingdong without any hesitation. He was not idle during the ride. The Lion Corps, which had just established a cooperative relationship, could be used immediately. Chen Chen called Bai Go, who answered the call almost immediately. This is Bai Go, the acting leader of the Lion Corps. If you have any business questions, please explain the situation. If you have any other questions, please contact my logistics staff at the following number. White Dog, I am the shipwreck, and I have a mission. Chen Chen interrupted Bai Go's rhetoric and continued. It is very likely that an elite private force of the 7th Brigade will go to Jingdong via the Mingyang Highway or the Mengla Highway. I need you to meet me at the Jingdong airport within an hour. Advance along the Mingyang Highway towards Minka. Deploy defenses near Wampai village and intercept them. I need at least 3 combat teams and $120,000. When it came to asking price, Chen Chen didn't hesitate at all and went straight to the top configuration. Because he really didn't have time to bargain with the Lion Army. Is it just a one-time mission? How many people are there on the other side? I don't know. If the number of people exceeds the limit, I will add money, but the cap is $200,000. Deal, leave immediately. Keep in touch. With a click, the phone was hung up. Chen Chen let out a breath slowly, and his heart, which had been beating violently just now, immediately stabilized. He quickly went over the short-term battle plan in his mind and eliminated all risk points. In such an extreme situation, the numerical disadvantage of their side turned out to be an advantage. Not to mention that the 7th Brigade had 2,000 people. Even if they had 20,000, the most they could send out to fight against Chen Chen would be a few dozen or 100. Exceeding this number would not only fail to bring advantages to the opponent, but might also expose various risks due to problems in organization, coordination, and logistic support, giving Chen Chen the opportunity to inflict uncontrollable high losses. The current situation is no different from a fight between 2 gangs in an alley. No matter how many people there are, only a few of them can touch each other. As long as these people are not worn out to death, then, theoretically, it is not a problem for a few people to fight dozens of people. The warrior car sped all the way, and it took only 30 minutes to reach the designated gathering point. What surprised Chen Chen was that less than 10 minutes after they arrived at the gathering point, the Lion Corps led by White Dog had also arrived. How do I pay? The first sentence that Bai Go asked when they met was, let your remaining members collect the money and ask for it from your target. Clear. Bai Go nodded to the adjutant beside him, who immediately turned around to make a phone call. Bai Go then turned back to Chen Chen and continued to ask, intelligence? Battle plan? There is no specific information. No. Blind typing? Yes, an ambush. It costs extra money. $22,000. Deal, get in the car? Wampai village is located 20 kilometers north of Jingdong. It is the intersection of Mengla Highway and Mingyang Highway. It is not a complete intersection, but after approaching from different directions, it begins to extend towards Jingdong in the same direction. There is a piece of farmland about 100 meters wide between the 2 roads. Due to the peculiar local infrastructure design at this location, the farmland, including the shallow river next to the farmland, is slightly higher than the 2 roads. On both sides of the farmland near the road are fruit trees and shrubs, which can completely block the view from the highway and can be said to be a perfect ambush route. About 300 meters away from the ambush point, the Lion Corps abandoned its vehicles and hid. Then all the personnel ran forward with their equipment, crossed the river along the river beach on the east side of the road, arrived at the designated location, and completed the concealment within a minute. Although he did not carry any fancy equipment, the most exaggerated was just an M240 general-purpose machine gun, but just from this deployment action, Chen Chen could see their military qualities. This Lion Army is really getting stronger as the fight goes on. These mercenaries who survive the battlefield and their own men may truly be the elite among the elite. They were divided into 3 groups in total. The 2 surveillance groups monitored the Mingyang Highway on the west and the Mengla Highway on the east respectively. Each group was equipped with a PKMS or M240 general-purpose machine gun, an SVD or M24 sniper rifle, and 2 Type 81 light machine guns with drum magazines. The moment the enemy appears, the general-purpose machine gunner will open fire first to intercept the front vehicle of the convoy, while the SVD-equipped precision shooter will accurately kill high-value targets, such as drivers and commanders after the convoy stops. As for the last two light machine gunners, they are mainly responsible for fire coverage and fire suppression. Neither of the two surveillance teams is a real means of killing. The real killer is the support team, or firepower team, standing by in the middle. This firepower team consists of 6 people, including Chen Chen and Li Bang. They are equipped with 4 rocket launchers of different models and carry 7 artillery shells, 6 of which are from the Lion Corps. Such firepower was enough to cover the entire convoy of less than 10 vehicles. The only problem was how to gather all the vehicles together, and this was the main reason why Chen Chen chose to ambush near Wampai village. Because if the other party really wants to come, they can only come from Mungka. They will most likely take the Mingyang Highway, but if they want to go to the Satina Hotel near the airport, they must cross the river from this location and drive onto the Mengla Highway. Otherwise, they will have to detour for dozens of kilometers. Before crossing the river, they had to stop and wait, and this was the Dongfeng Corps' opportunity. Of course, it is also an opportunity for the Lion Corps. Bai Go lay in the bunker that had been prepared long ago, holding a telescope covered with a shading net and observing the surroundings. After confirming the surrounding terrain, he couldn't help but sigh. It's not unfair to lose to you. With such limited intelligence and such a short time, you were able to find such a perfect ambush point. You didn't just find it by reading the map, did you? How could it be just the experience of the locals? Chen Chen shook his head in answer, but the white dog beside him was not disappointed by the answer at all. That's right. The human intelligence is very good. No wonder when we were fighting you, we always felt that we were suppressed everywhere and one step behind you in every aspect. Chen Ship, your depth of tactical thinking is totally beyond what you should have at your age. I really hope to have a chance to talk to you in the future. Don't set such a flag. Chen Chen interrupted immediately. What does it mean to set a flag? The white dog asked doubtfully. Just don't act like you're going to die after this fight. Chen Chen was too lazy to explain too much to him, but after a pause, Bai Go understood what he meant. How could they die? There are 12 of us. I know Chenny means private soldiers in the 7th Brigade. If they don't have more than 100 people, it will be easy to ambush and kill them. I said this just to hint to you that I still want to make a few more dollars from you. In the distance, 3 old land cruisers were speeding over, and following behind them was a Dongfeng EQ 2102 military-to-civilian truck that Chen Chen was very familiar with. Seeing this scene, Chen Chen, who was originally afraid of the combat effectiveness of Chunny means private soldiers, was stunned. He murmured, "Fuck, it's really here. Chunny mean, you are so cruel. But are these people here to deliver food?" At the same time, in the convoy, Chen Xuetzong, the platoon leader of Chunny means private army, sat in the back seat of the land cruiser, looking at a military map and speaking into the intercom. Go down to the river at the turn in the road ahead, go through the farmland path, and get on the Mengla Highway. The road condition of Mengla Highway is relatively good, and it is close to our target point, so we can block the enemy's escape route. They are really stupid. Why would they choose the Satina Hotel? Although that place is the key defense area of the 756th Brigade and is close to the airport, the terrain is too narrow and there are no roads leading in all directions. It won't take us even 2 minutes to block them in the hotel and kill them. By then, the 756th Brigade won't be able to react, and we can just withdraw. I don't know what the commander was thinking to send so many people for such a simple mission. Hearing his words, the adjutant beside him nodded slightly, and then answered, "It's true that we are being a bit too cautious, but their recent battle record is amazing. Half of the Lion Army was destroyed. There's no big problem with being a little more cautious. No matter how amazing they are, there are only 2 of them now, okay?" Chen Xuetzong shook his head in disdain and continued, "Look at the equipment we brought this time. We even have fuel air explosive bombs. If you don't know, you would think we are going to destroy the headquarters of the 756th Brigade. How about we just do it?" The adjutant said suddenly. "It's all infiltration warfare anyway. What's the point of fighting 2 rats? It's better to get some other results. Maybe you can get a promotion next time." Chen Xuetzong was somewhat tempted, but he also knew that causing trouble at this time was definitely not what the commander wanted. So he replied, "Forget it, just finish your work honestly and go home as soon as possible. My wife is about to give birth. Just be safe and sound." However, before he could finish his words, the window of the car in front of him suddenly exploded. A fire snake slithered across 2 land cruisers, and then bit the driver's seat of the last land cruiser to death. The 7.62mm bullet whizzed through the completely bulletproof glass and thin iron sheet, nailing Chen Xuetzong to the seat. At the moment of his death, he vaguely heard a voice in the wind. "Leave someone alive. Eliminate them all. Team 1, set up alert. Team 2, follow up with the shots. Pick out 2 lightly wounded and keep them alive. Team 3, drive the car over here and prepare to retreat." This ambush ended at an alarming speed. The originally prepared fire support team was not even used at all. Under the powerful machine gun fire, Chenny Mean's private soldier convoy did not even have time to get out of the car to deploy and was suffocated to death in the car. Only the last truck, because of the open design of the back seat, allowed a few people with quick reactions to run out. However, under the bursts of fire from Chen Chen and the other 2 precision shooters, those people did not even run a distance of 20 meters and could not even find cover before they fell dead on the Mingyang Highway. The air was filled with smoke and the smell of blood. Standing next to the white dog, Chen Chen felt for the first time the power of the Lion Legion. Of course, if such a battle were fought by the fully equipped Dongfeng Corps, it would definitely not be worse than the Lion Corps. Because the test paper is only worth 100 points, no matter who takes the test, the maximum score is 100. However, the Lion Corps, which defeated the 7th Brigade's private soldiers with a score of 100, had suffered more than half of its casualties from the Dongfeng Corps before. That means that the combat effectiveness of the Dongfeng Corps is actually higher than theirs. Chen Chen scratched his head, and a thought suddenly flashed through his mind. Damn, are we that strong already? No wonder the Lion Corps surrendered so easily. Indeed, they were the only team that had truly experienced the power of the Dongfeng Corps. The gap is so huge that there is no difference in anything. The poor students always think that the top students who get 100 points in the exam are only slightly better than themselves, or even worse than themselves. Only those who have fought with the academic genius know that he can get a perfect score because the test paper is only worth a perfect score. Hurry up, hurry up. Collect the spoils. Don't take the low-value ones. Where's the person? There's a survivor. Stop the bleeding. Give him a stamina booster. Give him adrenaline. Keep him alive. Get in the car. Get in the car. Get in the car. 30 seconds countdown. Prepare to retreat. Direction Jingdong. Go to Gadeo Market to rest. A series of orders were issued, and everyone started to board the car. Chen Chen watched them load the equipment onto the car one by one, and couldn't help but say, "We also participated in the battle. We have a part to play." Hearing this, Go couldn't help but roll his eyes at him. Do we look like the kind of people who are robbing our employer's spoils? We can divide it up in a safe place. Helping you move is already a value-added service. It's free. As soon as the words fell, the vehicle started, and the warrior car rushed out behind the Hilux pickup truck of the Lion Corps, heading towards the Lion Corps' predetermined destination. Half an hour later, everyone stopped at the Ga Island Market. It turned out that this was not a real market, but an abandoned mining town on the top of a mountain with only a few families living in it. However, the terrain was easy to defend and difficult to attack, and it could be seen at a glance that it was a temporary stop often used by the Lion Corps in its operations. As soon as Chen Chen got out of the car, the two captured prisoners were dragged down as well. Go unceremoniously hit each of them with the butt of a rifle and pinned them to the ground. Ask quickly. After that, we have to leave quickly and retreat back to Jingdong. The enemy's communications have been disrupted. They may send reinforcements soon. We don't have much time. Hearing his words, Chen Chen immediately walked forward and squatted in front of the two of them. He did not start interrogating directly, but said kindly, "I'll say it in advance. We are all soldiers who eat food. Why are you playing with your life? One of you was shot in the calf, and the other was shot in the shoulder. Neither of them is life-threatening. Just answer whatever I ask you later, and I'll make sure you stay healthy. Besides, how much money can you make as a private soldier for Chen? I'm not afraid to tell you that in the past 3 months, our Dongfeng Corps has earned 2 million. For people, each of them got hundreds of thousands. Cooperate well, and you'll have a chance to earn this money." After hearing his words, the expressions of everyone present changed. The white dog gnashed his teeth. $2 million in 3 months. Damn it, comparing yourself to others will only make you feel pissed off. Although I am worse than you, I am not that bad, right? After a year of life and death, I only make a few $100,000. It seems that it is really important to be with the right person. When I collect the money later, I can give the shipwreck a discount to consolidate the relationship. Even the white dog is like this. And the private soldiers who can only make $20,000 at most in a year are even more shocked. Of the two men, the one with the injured calf switched sides on the spot. "Sir, I am willing to surrender. Chen is not a good person. I've already seen it. You are the real hero. If you have anything to ask, please feel free to ask. I will do my best to cooperate." Chen Chen smiled slightly and turned to look at another person. "And you?" The man's response was much more subdued. After hesitating for a moment, he finally replied in a low voice, "I will cooperate too." "That's great." Chen Chen did not hesitate at all. He pulled the trigger of the M1911 in his hand. The bullet penetrated the forehead of the man who spoke first, and then went out from the back of the head and hit the door of the Hilux pickup behind him, causing a small spark. "Fuck, watch out, Jia. It's okay. Just be careful of the ricochets." Go took back the second half of his words in time and turned his head away seriously. "Just say it, we don't need so many people." The second person, startled by the gunshot, was stunned for a moment, then slowly nodded and said, "I am the adjutant of the 4th Platoon of the Special Operations Brigade's Guard Platoon. 2 hours ago, I received a mission to go to Jingdong to carry out an infiltration operation. The target is you. Our platoon leader is dead. The one in the car had his head smashed. I have some information, but it is still less than what the commander of the 1st, 2nd, and 3rd platoons, Chen Min's closest guards, has. But just ask whatever you want to ask, I won't hide anything." Chen Chen was very satisfied with his reaction. In fact, the reason why he chose him for interrogation was very simple. That is, he is the one who really has a mental breakdown. The first person is too calm, too active, and too abnormal. Such a person may really have plans to rebel, but he will never confess sincerely. They only choose to say the information that is most beneficial to themselves, with the sole purpose of saving their own lives. And the remaining one performed much better. Depressed, hopeless, helpless. It is best to break through such a fragile psychological environment. So Chen Chen reached out and grabbed his shoulders. To be precise, it grabbed his collarbone, which was shattered by a bullet. "Look, your shoulder is broken. But you were lucky that the bullet and bone fragments only injured the suprascapular artery and not the more dangerous subclavian artery. Do you know what the subclavian artery is like? It is only a few centimeters away from the common carotid artery. Its blood vessel diameter is several times larger than that of the suprascapular artery, and its blood flow is more than 10 times greater. If this artery ruptures, you could die within tens of seconds, and there would be no way to save your life. Right now, I'm holding a fragment of your clavicle. If I push down a little harder, it will puncture your lower artery. But I won't do that. I will give you 3 chances. Every time you make a mistake, I will cut a blood vessel. Only the last time will cost you your life. How's that? Is it fair?" Intense pain and fear instantly took over the private soldier's entire body and mind. He gritted his teeth and nodded, answering, "That's fair. Please, ask quickly. I feel dizzy and I can't stand it anymore. Don't worry, at this rate of bleeding, you have at least 3 hours. Chen Chen loosened his grip slightly, then asked, "Where is Chen Min's exact location?" The interrogation process was actually unremarkable. Facing a wounded soldier whose psychological defenses had been completely destroyed, if Chen Chen still couldn't get anything out of him, then he would have truly learned nothing in his previous life. And in fact, the results are very good. The first issue was the authenticity of the intelligence obtained. During the interrogation process, he repeatedly used methods including open questioning, segmented questioning, repeated information confirmation, emotional control, etc., with the aim of finding possible inconsistencies in the person being interrogated. But this never happened once. And by observing the nonverbal behavior of this private soldier, Chen Chen could basically be sure that he was not lying. As the answer to the last question was confirmed, Chen Chen breathed a sigh of relief and withdrew his hand that was soaked in blood. He made a gesture to Bai Go, who nodded in understanding. But just as he was about to draw his gun, Chen Chen caught a glimpse of his movement and quickly stopped him. "What? Don't you understand my gestures? I asked you to take him back and lock him up, not kill him. Do you need to do it if you want to kill me? That my bad, I had a preconceived idea and didn't pay attention. Is he still useful?" The white dog replied apologetically. "Of course it's useful. A living person who can talk is always more useful than a dead person who can't talk. Remove his limbs, not cut them off, but dislocate them. Understood. Let's retreat to Jingdong." Chen Chen nodded slightly and turned to get on the warrior. There was no rush to divide the equipment. The two PF-89s, equipped with individual fuel air bombs that appeared here at the right time, would definitely belong to him, while the other equipment was insignificant. His biggest gain from this battle was obtaining accurate information about Chen Min. That's right, the other party has indeed entered a state of high alert. Since 2 days ago, he has not left the military camp, and he has spent most of his time in his sturdy command post. At the same time, martial law has been imposed throughout Myanmar City. The military's alert range has extended to 2 kilometers outside the military camp, and the urban area is also filled with sentries. Such a strategy would make it difficult for most attackers to attack, as even if they wanted to carry out a long-range sniping attack, it would be out of range. But it's not all bad news. Chen Min will leave the command post. Although he was still moving around in the military camp, he had no roof over his head. Since there is no top, there is a chance that it can be discovered through high-altitude reconnaissance. And as long as you are discovered, there is a chance that you will be killed. Chen Chen already had a rough plan in his mind. This plan was certainly not perfect, but there was a lot of room for improvement. 2 hours later, inside the command post of Mungkam military camp, Chen Min listened to the adjutant's report with a gloomy face and asked, "Is the 4th platoon confirmed to be wiped out? Have you checked the scene?" The adjutant looked a little timid. He hesitated for a moment before answering. "We haven't sent anyone there yet. We're worried that the Dongfeng Corps may have ambushes. If we go there, we can only fight back. I need your instructions on whether to increase the number of troops, all at once." "How to increase it?" Chen Min interrupted the adjutant without hesitation and said, "That's not our territory. It's the territory of the 756th Brigade. If we go there rashly, we'll get into big trouble. 1 platoon is already the limit. If we really can't defeat them, then we'll just have to wait. They will definitely come looking for me. I have to give them a loophole, a bait, so that they can bite it themselves. Then I'll tear them all apart bit by bit." Having said this, Chen Min's expression finally got out of control and revealed a bit of ferocity. Even the calmest person has his limits, and now, the Dongfeng Corps is about to break through his limits. Killing his brother was almost a fact, and after he ordered an investigation, they not only refused to surrender, but actually fought back. In fact, their counterattack was so fierce that he had not expected it at all. With just one encounter, they wiped out the 4th platoon of the Guards, which was considered the elite in the 7th Brigade. How did they do that? Chen Min couldn't understand why. For a long time, he always felt that he was the overlord of Mungka. But now his position has been challenged. Received a ridiculous challenge from only 4 people. A strong pressure descended on Chen Min's heart. He had not felt this way for many years. The Dongfeng Corps is really strong. The shipwreck is really strong. But no matter how strong you are, I will beat you to death. I won't give you any chance to fight back. After a brief pause, he said, "Notify all guard platoons to assemble and take turns on duty starting today. Strengthen martial law in the urban area. No human activity is allowed on the streets after 8 o'clock. Turn on all lights in the camp and issue night vision goggles to the special operations team members who are monitoring the perimeter. We have to do our best to ensure the safety of the camp, but I have to find a way to leave him a loophole." Chen Min's eyes changed, and in a very short period of time, he seemed to have experienced a very painful struggle. Finally, he said, "Let Jiashu leave the camp and go to Mungka City to take charge of law and order maintenance work." "Clear." The adjutant answered immediately, but then asked, "What if they don't come? Then I'll think of another way." Chen Min answered without any hesitation. "The sunken ship is always a threat. If I don't get rid of it, I will never be able to operate safely in Mungka." He was so determined to attack me. Maybe he had colluded with the Burmese army. "Wait, this is an opportunity. We need to create some minor friction, cause some confusion, and hook the sinking boat." Chen Min's voice gradually became lower. A few minutes later, the adjutant walked out of the room and began to issue orders and tasks to various relevant combat units via radio. What he didn't know was that these radio waves had already drifted away with the wind, and then were blocked by an invisible net in a corner of Mungka City. After arriving in Jingdong, Chen Chen did not continue to Mengbin, but set up camp and rest on the spot with the Lion Corps. In fact, as a super veteran mercenary group, the Lion Corps has quite mature operations throughout northern Myanmar. Even though Jingdong is not under the jurisdiction of Hua State, they can still find a trustworthy foothold. This is a temple called Wajonkin, which is a very common name among Buddhist temples. Not to mention this place. Chen Chen had seen a lot of temples with this name when he went to Thailand to participate in a joint operation in his previous life. Of course, the more ordinary it is, the safer it is as a place to stay. In particular, the temple is located in Taiping Park on the southwest side of Jingdong. An NH4 highway is just a few hundred meters to the east. It can be said that it has reached its maximum in terms of concealment and evacuation convenience. I really don't know how they found such resources. In other words, if they could find such resources, the foundation of the Lion Legion must be much deeper than I expected. It is impossible to join them. That would be a disgrace to oneself. But what if we let them join the Dongfeng Corps? Chen Chen showed a weird smile on his face. The white dog who just got off the car looked at him puzzledly and asked, "What's wrong with you?" Chen Chen shook his head and replied, "I think of happy things. You're being watched closely by the 7th Brigade. I think you won't survive for many days. Their offensive will not be just once. They will find you soon and kill you in the most brutal way possible. And you can still think of happy things? What's the matter? Did you buy insurance against being shot? Please be polite. I am your employer." Chen Chen said with a straight face. "Not anymore. The mission is over." Bai Go looked indifferent, pointed at the equipment unloaded from the car, and said, "Let's divide the equipment. After that, we can talk about what happens next." "No, let's talk about the future first." Chen Chen sat down on a chair in front of the temple, then patted his side and said, "Come, sit down and talk." The white dog was stunned for a moment, then sat down with a suspicious look on his face. That's right, he did want to cling to the Dongfeng Corps before. But looking at the current performance of the shipwreck, why does it feel a little wrong? He wanted to speak, but before the words came to his mouth, Chen Chen said first, "The money for the last mission has been paid, and we can say that we have cooperated very happily. You also made money, and a lot of it. Now I have a new mission here. Are you interested? The reward is very generous." "Of course, who can resist money?" The white dog answered without hesitation. "That's good if you're interested. The total reward for the mission is $200,000. The mission period is about a week, and we only need these 12 people. How is it? Can I take it?" Chen Chen's offer was actually based on his own operating costs. At the beginning, he still had about 320,000 yuan left for operating costs, plus 100,000 yuan out of the 530,000 yuan sent by Zhu Qixing of the 756th Brigade, a total of 420,000 yuan. The Lion Corps had already been given 100,000 for the protection mission, plus the 120,000 for the interception mission, so he only had 200,000 left. Of course, he would not touch his own money casually. The company has its own rules, and who has ever seen someone pay out of his own pocket to fill the company account? This is neither reasonable nor conducive to the later development of the Corps. As for the 500,000 US dollars that the Jackal has not yet paid, to be honest, considering the total price of the equipment he wants, it is good enough that he can pay it based on the 50% operating cost. Of course, 200,000 US dollars is already a considerable number, and it is impossible for White Dog to not be interested. "Yes, I can accept it, but you have to tell me what the mission is first." The White Dog replied, "Attack the 7th Brigade camp in Mungka." The White Dog was silent for a long time before he uttered one word, "Dry, dry." Chen Chen was overjoyed. "Fuck you. 200,000 US dollars, 12 people, attacking Mungka camp? Are you crazy, or am I crazy? Don't you know how many people are in the 7th Brigade? 2,000. Even if we take into account that some of them are not stationed in Mungka, there are still at least 1,500 people. They have artillery. Besides these 1,500 people, there are about 300 private soldiers, known as the Special Operations Brigade. One of them is a 200-man guard company that is even more elite. It's not easy to defeat them alone. Are you going to defeat them all at once? Are you possessed by the god of war, or the indestructible Azura body? Stop it, I can't fight. This is not a head-on confrontation. This is not a positional war." Chen Chen hurriedly explained. "What I need is continuous harassment, nighttime harassment, to create opportunities for our assault team to evacuate. To put it bluntly, you are only responsible for providing cover. Of course, it's possible that it could end in a seesaw battle, but with your equipment and combat power, can't you fight and retreat at the same time? But we can't fight that either. The risk is too high. The risk of total annihilation is at least greater than 50%. I'll pay more." Chen Chen finally let go and said, "How much?" This question stumped Chen Chen. "How much should I add? If it really doesn't work, I'll just owe the money for Jackal's equipment. Anyway, once the Chen family is killed, that will be the time to really reap the fruits. What are hundreds of thousands of dollars? If Chaseley really wants to make money, he may be able to make millions or even tens of millions in 1 or 2 years." Thinking of this, he spoke decisively. $500,000. That is it so flexible? Deal. At your service, Mr. Shipwreck. Damn it, I reported too much. Chen Chen sighed, but he couldn't say he regretted it. As I said, there is plenty of money to be made by killing the Chen family. Another point is that if the Lion Corps can survive this time, it will be much easier to win them over. It is never a bad idea to spend a fortune on horse bones. So he stretched out his hand to the white dog. Of course, the white dog stretched out his hand and shook it without hesitation, then asked eagerly, "How do I pay?" "I will pay $200,000 first, and then Chisley will pay the rest after completing the task." "Is Chisley your subsidiary? If you want equipment, give me equipment. If you want money, give me money. Just obey me. This is not my business." "What is the mission objective?" Chen Chen shook his head and replied, "It's unclear at the moment, but basically it's harassment and delaying. We have to wait until we have enough intelligence before arranging a detailed battle plan. I will give you a briefing at that time, and we will discuss it in detail according to the briefing." "Understood. Reasonable." The white dog nodded and stood up from the chair. "Let's pick out some equipment first. After that, we'll start sharing intelligence. We also have some intelligence on Shonimin that should be useful. This time, he did not say divide but pick, which shows that there has been a clear change in his attitude. No problem. Chen Chen also stood up and walked to Li Bang, who was moving PF-89 to the side. No need to move. The Lion Army will move with us. Pick out some that are useful. Chen Yin saw the MPSA-12 with a drum magazine thrown on the ground and couldn't help but exclaimed in surprise. Fuck, Chen Yimin can get such a good thing? Obviously, this was prepared by the 4th Platoon of the Guard Company for the battle with the Dongfeng Corps at the Sathana Hotel, because they even equipped this shotgun with FRAG-12 high-explosive bullets. The parameters of this ammunition are complicated to explain, but the simple understanding is that it can penetrate walls and explode, and can be fired directly through doors, bypassing the most dangerous breakthrough and deployment link in CQB. It seems that Chen Yimin is really familiar with the Dongfeng Corps' combat methods. But no matter how familiar he is, it's no use because this thing belongs to him now. Chen Chen threw the gun to Li Bang and said, "This is an automatic shotgun. You can throw your 97-2 now." The overall performance of AA-12 is much better than that of 97-2. The so-called evaluation of being big, heavy, and ugly does not need to be considered at all. If there is one disadvantage, it may be that the recoil-type continuous firing method makes it impossible to fire some low-pressure ammunition types continuously. But this is northern Myanmar, who would use riot bombs for no reason. Not to mention the impractical dragon breath bombs that made a lot of noise. Chen Chen would never buy one in his lifetime. I was thinking of upgrading some equipment for Li Bang before, but I didn't expect the transport team leader to deliver it to my door in person. Chen Yimin, my good brother, I will definitely burn more paper for you in the future. After taking the AA-12, Chen Chen looked around and found no other useful equipment. However, this team of more than 30 people had 8 night vision goggles, which was a very high equipment rate among the warlords in northern Myanmar, even among the elite private soldiers. This could just make up for the lack of night vision goggles in the Lion Corps. Although they had quite a few, it was impossible for everyone to have one. Even after half of them had died, the equipment rate was less than 50%. So, Chen Chen generously gave them the night vision goggles, which made Go feel a little ashamed. Look, what is atmosphere? The most expensive thing was given to me like this. I still have to learn from it in the future. Apart from these, there was nothing else to share. Everyone went to rest. Chen Chen and Go went to discuss the details of the intelligence. More than an hour later, Chen Chen received a call from Jackal. The time was 8 o'clock in the evening, and the equipment he wanted was ready. Type 63-107 rocket launcher. I got it from the 756th Brigade. It has 12 high-explosive armor-piercing shells and 12 phosphorus aluminum incendiary shells. The total price is $150,000. PF-89, being transported from Maysat to Kingtung, 2 launchers, 6 fuel-air explosive bombs, total price $140,000. A large load of high explosives, including detonators and some C4, for $20,000. We don't have a glider, but we found a tandem paramotor. We'll go get it from the gliding club in Jingdong. The total price is $10,000. All the other miscellaneous things you want are also ready, $10,000. The total here is $330,000. I deducted it from your commission. No more high explosives and balloons. I've already bought it, and I can't return it. Hearing this, Chen Chen coughed and said, "Well, I'll owe it to you first. I have to pay the Lion Corps first. Are you sure you want to attack the military camp? Night raid. Then let's take a gamble. If you live, you figure out a way to pay the money. If you die, your inheritance will belong to me. No problem." After just a few words, Chen Chen reached a consensus with the Jackal and obtained the specific location for the equipment handover. The next step is to wait for Lin He to send back specific information and formulate a battle plan. At the same time in Myanmar City, just as planned at the beginning, Lin He had sold the few dumb chickens he brought here, and there was still a bunch of herbs left in his bag. He was walking aimlessly on the street with a monkey in his hand. The curfew was about to arrive, and he could indeed find a hotel to stay in immediately because he had enough cash given to him by Chen Chen to deal with emergencies. But he didn't do so because he knew that such a choice was totally inconsistent with his image as a poor hunter who resold wild goods. According to past practice, he should have found a corner that could shelter from the rain and stayed there for the night. But since there was a curfew, he could no longer do that. He could not leave Myanmar City or leave the range where he could monitor the 7th Brigade's radio communications, but he had to have a reasonable reason to stay here. And this reason must be given by the 7th Brigade. Otherwise, if the boss becomes suspicious, you will be in danger. Turning the corner of the street, Lin He deliberately appeared in front of the patrolling soldiers. Not surprisingly, he was driven away and scolded by the other party. His face was filled with panic and fear, and it wasn't entirely a disguise. The other party's gun is loaded, and if they have any doubts, they will immediately pull the trigger and shoot themselves on the spot. This is a gamble with your life. How can you not be afraid? But being afraid means death. He remembered what the captain taught him, apologized to the soldier repeatedly, and promised to leave immediately and check into the hotel. After the other party let him go, he turned around and went into a pheasant restaurant on the roadside that he had his eyes on for a long time. The soldiers laughed behind him, but Lin He remained unmoved. Yes, the pheasant inn also provides accommodation services, which he had just found out during the day. Compared to a hotel, although there are more people and more eyes here, the advantage is that there is no interference from the management committee, so safety is greatly guaranteed. This shabby shop wasn't doing well, but for just 60 renminbi, he got a room that was completely isolated from the outside world. In this room, he took out the listening radio he had just gotten and started monitoring the messy radio signals according to the method given by the Thai man. The method was simple, but the process of trial and error was boring. He sat in the dark for a whole night, constantly adjusting the knobs and writing down the intermittent, fragmented sounds he heard from the headphones. The 12th connecting class to Namluo Bridge. Pay attention to the lights, turn them all on. Changing of guards near Kuka blocked area. 0.5 km is good. Any action? Munku game. Old Myanmar, guard company leader. Keep an eye on the city hall. Pay attention to Captain Chen. Safety, time passed minute by minute, and his monitoring lasted for a full 12 hours. After a night of monitoring, he passed all the information to Chen Chen, who was far away in Jingdong. A few hours later, the phone he kept hidden on his body rang. On the other end of the line came Chen Chen's decisive and resolute voice. The intelligence is basically clear, and the battle plan is being formulated. Number 5, stay in Munka and continue to monitor the 7th Brigade and the Burmese Army's movements in Munku camp, and continue to pass on intelligence. Be safe. We plan to launch the attack at the right time in 36 hours. 36 hours later, in the northern suburbs of Munka, 8 kilometers away from the main urban area and 5 kilometers away from the Munka military camp, in a jungle, Chen Chen commanded the mercenaries of the Lion Corps to unload the goods from the car one by one. The white dog at the side looked at the various equipment, and the doubts in his heart had almost reached its peak. He shook his head and walked towards Chen Chen, lowering his voice and asking, "Are you sure that all these things can be used? Are you sure that your strategy can succeed? What I mean is that we might cause a relatively large wave of casualties to the 7th Brigade, but that's all. It's so far away that it's difficult for us to even assess the casualties. Honestly, your battle plan sounds like a joke. Do you want to reconsider it?" Hearing his words, Chen Chen shook his head in disdain, and then replied, "So now you know why we were able to survive so many battles? Do you know why you were defeated by us even though you were so strong? The reason is actually very simple. We dare to think, but you don't. Teams like yours always think that fighting should be rigid and by the rules. You can play tactics and tricks, but you only follow the cases in the textbooks. Even if there are changes, they are all within the basic strategies of conventional warfare. If we go to war like this, it's a miracle if we don't lose. Who can't read textbooks? This is the gap between you and us, and this is also the gap between you and me." Chen Chen's words made by Go speechless. He opened his mouth several times and finally said, "But you obviously have a better chance. The intelligence you collected shows that there may be a conflict between the Burmese Munku camp and the Shan State Army's 7th Brigade. The recent deployment of the 7th Brigade has indeed verified this intelligence. If they really start fighting, the situation will be chaotic. Wouldn't it be better for you to take advantage of that opportunity to carry out infiltration operations? Why do you have to do it now? This kind of intelligence was never my goal. All is fair in war. Who knows if they are really going to fight?" Chen Chen asked back, and then continued to explain. "Of course, I am not saying that this must be a trap set by the 7th Brigade, because the relationship between the two sides is indeed deteriorating. But so what? Even we can see that this is an opportunity for a surprise attack. As the military commander of the 7th Brigade, how could Chen Chen not see it? He will definitely be prepared, and he will even have additional, special defensive measures against us. When the 7th Brigade actually fights the Burmese army, that's when their defense will be the most stringent and their combat power will be the strongest. So, why do we have to run into the muzzle of a gun? The unexpected is the correct strategy. We can create chaos ourselves, so there's no need to wait for others. Stop talking so much. Go get the hydrogen tank and blow up the balloon quickly. If the wind changes direction later, we will have wasted all this time preparing." Bai Go still wanted to refute, but after thinking it over carefully, he suddenly realized that after all, he was just a helper hired by Chen Chen, and his responsibility was only to harass and cover the tasks. He actually had no say in their real battle plan. In that case, let him be. Bai Go shook his head, turned around, unloaded the last tank of hydrogen from the pickup truck, and began to help Chen Chen fill the balloon. At the same time, although Chen Chen seemed silent and daydreaming, his brain was actually working frantically to confirm the details of the plan for the last time. In fact, what he wanted to do was very simple. To sum it up in one sentence, he would rush into the Munka military camp, get close enough, and then fire 2 thermobaric bombs at Chen Min's command post. A single-soldier fuel-air explosive bomb can produce an overpressure of about 0.3 MPa within 3 meters of the explosion center. During the combustion process, it will generate a high temperature of about 2,500 degrees, which can effectively kill targets within 50 square meters on flat ground. If the explosion center happens to be in a closed environment and the environmental volume is within 120 cubic meters, living targets in the closed environment will almost certainly die after the explosion of the fuel-air bomb. Because at this time, the overpressure generated by the fuel-air bomb will reach an astonishing 0.8 MPa. According to the previous interrogation and Lin He's long-range reconnaissance, the command post has a total of 3 floors, less than 8 meters high, 11 meters long from north to south, and 10 meters wide from east to west, and is divided into a total of 7 rooms. That is to say, the average volume of each relatively enclosed space is less than 120 cubic meters. Even if 1 fuel-air bomb is not enough, 2 or 3 will be enough. But it is not easy at all to implement such a plan. It was impossible to sneak in, as the command post was the most heavily guarded and closely monitored area. No matter how big the chaos was, as long as Chen Chen retreated to the command post, his loyal private soldiers would definitely return to defend as quickly as possible, and then build the strongest defense line near the command post. Want a breakthrough? Without dozens or hundreds of people and absolutely overwhelming equipment advantages, you have no chance of even getting close to them. After all, the defense line of the 7th Brigade has now expanded to 3 kilometers outside the military camp, and the command post is located in the center of the military camp, with a total distance of 4 kilometers. At this distance, it can basically be said that all weapons held by non-warlord armed forces are ineffective. The rocket launcher's range of 1,000 meters is unreachable. On the one hand, the mortar has accuracy issues, and on the other hand, its armor-piercing ability is not enough to penetrate the thick concrete armor of the command post. As for the 107 rocket launcher in Chen Chen's hand, with an accuracy of 1/80th, when fired at a distance of 5 kilometers, the dispersion range has reached 60 meters, which is beyond the effective killing range of the rocket explosion. This is simply not a piece of equipment suitable for precision strikes on a single target. What? You said you wanted to bombard? Stop joking. Do you think that artillery with long range and area strike capabilities can be bought by just anyone? In ancient China, there was no problem if you privately kept swords and knives, but if you privately kept armor, it would be a serious crime of treason. In northern Myanmar, secretly storing cannons is the same crime. Therefore, there is only one feasible raid plan, that is, an attack from the air. These warlords had almost no experience in dealing with air raids, and their troops also lacked basic air defense monitoring methods. In addition, the design of the paramotor could shut down and start the engine at any time in the air. Chen Chen could completely shut down the engine after reaching a sufficient height, glide silently to the predetermined position and hover, and then use the fuel air explosive bomb to launch a top-down attack directly from the air. There is no problem with attacking, the problem is evacuating. The maximum flight speed of a paramotor is only 50 kilometers per hour, and the acceleration is extremely slow. After completing the attack, those soldiers of the 7th Brigade who were not killed on the spot would inevitably react and start shooting at themselves who were defenseless in the air. That's why he needs balloons, 107 fire, extra fuel air bombs, and the Lion Corps. All of this is in preparation for evacuation. Dozens of hydrogen balloons were hung with high explosives with detonators, and they were allowed to float with the wind above the 7th Brigade's Minka camp. During the attack, a radio was used to send a specific frequency signal. The receiver on the balloon received the signal and formed a circuit to ignite the priming charge. The priming charge burned through the balloon, and then after a short delay in combustion, the detonator and explosives were detonated. This is a simple airdrop version of IED, which was used in the Middle East and even in World War II. Now, Chen Chen has just scaled it up. This time, he wanted to let Chen Yimin see who was the master in this area. Oh no, he probably couldn't see it. In addition to the explosion of the hydrogen balloon, which disrupted the local judgment and interrupted the opponent's ODA, the Lion Corps would also immediately use 107 fire to bombard the enemy at the same time as the attack was completed. All 24 rockets will be fired without leaving a single one behind and concentrated in the central area near the command post to suppress the enemy's reinforcement firepower and create a relatively safe fire vacuum zone for Chen Chen. After doing all this, the Lion Corps must stick to the planned flight route of the paramotor and use the various weapons in their hands, including individual fuel air explosive bombs, to delay the enemy's pursuit force so that Chen Chen can fly into the jungle and land smoothly. The Lion Corps could not withdraw until Chen Chen confirmed that the parachutes had been lowered. According to the estimated flying speed, they will have to hold out for at least 20 minutes. This is not an easy task, but the Lion Corps must complete it. Half an hour later, all the hydrogen balloons were ready and the wind direction gradually began to stabilize. Chen Chen and the others aimed in the direction of the Minka camp in the distance and released hydrogen balloons one after another. Afterwards, he and Li Bang immediately went to the flat high slope at the rear, and with the help of the Lion Corps members, they sat on the powered parachutes, carried the fuel air rocket launchers on their backs, and set off on the spot. When he saw the paramotor lift off, Go, who was waiting on the ground, suddenly realized something. After more than a decade of fighting, this was the first time he had seen a live air raid in northern Myanmar. And it was done with a powered parachute. What the hell is this world? Seeing the powered parachute take off and the balloon army gradually drifting away, Go sighed deeply and gave orders to his team members. Leave 2 people in Group 1 to release the rockets, and everyone else follow me to the designated evacuation, point number 1, and prepare for battle. In the air, Chen Chen carefully controlled the paramotor to fly in the direction away from the camp while asking about Li Bang's condition. Although the latter had undergone more than 10 hours of short-term intensive training and was basically able to adapt to high altitudes and paramotor flying, he was ultimately inexperienced, and Chen Chen had to devote some of his energy to paying attention to his condition. But fortunately, at least from the current situation, he is still in good condition. There was no moon in the sky at this time, and as the paramotor gradually rose higher, they lost their vision in the darkness. The only reference point was the brightly lit camp a few kilometers away. Chen Chen pulled up the paramotor and said to Li Bang, "Number 1, pay attention to your condition. If you feel any discomfort, you must report it immediately. This will affect the execution of subsequent tasks." "Got it. I feel fine. I'm very sober." "That's fine." Hearing this, Chen Chen nodded subconsciously in the air and then continued to ask, "White Dog, have you arrived at the designated blocking location? We'll be there in 10 minutes. Damn, they have set up so many sentry posts, it's not that easy to bypass them. I can only give you 15 minutes at most. We're going to circle and climb. Radio communications may be interrupted. Please proceed according to the original plan." "Understood. We will proceed as planned." The balloon is 3 kilometers away from the target point and about 40 meters high. The ascent speed is slow, which is within our expectations. After hearing Go's answer, Chen Chen immediately added, "How far off in direction?" "The deviation in direction is very small, estimated to be within 2 degrees. According to the current route, the balloon will pass by the southeast side of the camp." "The southeast side is okay. I'm starting to climb." As soon as he finished speaking, Chen Chen gently pulled the joystick. Then, with the roar of the diesel engine, his paramotor flew higher and higher. Li Bang behind him quickly grabbed the handrail, and Chen Chen returned to level flight only when the luminous altimeter showed that the altitude had reached nearly 1,000 meters. It has to be said that even for him who was tired of riding in helicopters in his previous life, this was a very novel experience. The whole body was completely exposed to the air, with the cool night breeze blowing past. Below was the dark mountain forest, and above was the equally dark night sky. Apart from the military camp, the only glowing things in the two men's sight were the fluorescent indicator belts they carried. Getting closer and closer to the Mungka camp, Chen Chen's radio finally detected the signal from Linha. As an observer, he lurked on a hillside about 2 kilometers away from Mungka camp, always keeping an eye on the movements of the command post. Number 5, is the target still inside the building? Yes, I didn't see him come out. Linny's answer was not so concise and professional. After all, he had not received any training. But as long as his meaning was clear, that was enough. Shut down the engine. Count down 10 minutes to start the attack. Understood. We have arrived at the blocking location. Number 5, evacuate in 8 minutes. Understood. Evacuate in 8 minutes. Number 1, prepare the fuel air bomb. We are ready. A series of orders were issued and confirmed in a very short time. The altitude of the paramotor began to decrease continuously, and the distance to Mungka camp was getting closer and closer. 5 minutes left on the countdown, 3 kilometers away. Chen Chen could already see the specific outline of the camp. With 3 minutes left on the countdown and a distance of 1 kilometer, the speed of the paramotor began to decrease under Chen Chen's intentional control, and he identified the location of the central command post. With 1 minute left on the countdown, the paramotor arrived above the central command post at an altitude of 150 meters. At this point, they had already entered an extremely dangerous distance, because, under the reflection of the ground, vague black shadows can be seen in the air. But in the end, no one noticed this bat flying silently in the dark night. At the same time, at an altitude of about 100 meters, Chen Chen saw several hydrogen balloons with fluorescent markings. Of the 40 balloons originally planned, no more than 20 actually flew here, but that was enough. With a 10-second countdown, Chen Chen adjusted the position of the paramotor, parallel to the open door of the command post, and then took the PF-89 fuel air bomb prepared by Li Bang. They both aimed at the door at the same time. 3, 2, 1, fire. The order was given, the trigger was pulled, and the fuel air explosive bomb flew out of the chamber. One of the 2 rockets went straight into the gate, and the other hit the ground outside the gate. Bah! A huge explosion sounded, white smoke burst out, and then the spreading combustible material was instantly ignited. The flames exploded. Retreat! Retreat! Chen Chen shouted loudly. The engine of the paramotor restarted, and the speed began to increase slowly. The blast from the fuel air bomb lifted them up a distance, and at this moment they were already 200 meters above the ground. At the same time, White Dog, who had prepared the radio long ago, turned on the power, and as the signal was sent, the balloons suspended in the air exploded one by one. They only made a slight sound, because the radio controlled only the bursting of the balloons themselves. But how long does it take to fall from 100 meters in the air? The answer is 4.52 seconds. Then, just 5 seconds later, continuous explosions began to be heard throughout the camp, outside the camp, and even 1 kilometer away from the camp. Although there is no fragmentation filling, the power of each piece of at least 500 grams of high explosive is still amazing. Smoke and dust rose up on the ground, and even a wooden barracks was hit and flattened from top to bottom. Those soldiers who were unlucky enough to be within the range of the explosion were blown away by the shockwave before they could even react. Even while still in the air, bright red blood splattered from their mouths, noses, and eyes. Yes, the casualties from balloon IEDs were not significant, but the soldiers in Mungka camp were completely confused. Although they had received instructions and knew that the camp might be attacked, they had never thought that the attack would happen in this way. What the hell? Isn't this the core area of the camp? The outer defense lines didn't make any noise, but they bombed us directly? Where did the shells come from? Where did the explosives come from? Just appeared out of nowhere. The ODA of this large camp was certainly not directly cut off, but their speed of observation and positioning was severely slowed down. After a full half minute, someone finally looked up at the sky. They didn't see anything because the paramotor had already risen to a height of nearly 100 meters. But from the humming sound of the engine, they realized that something was wrong. Then, under the orders of the surviving commanders at all levels below the brigade level, the searchlights that were originally shining on the perimeter of the camp began to turn and point toward the sky. Huge pillars of light swayed in the deep night, like tangled and intertwined aquatic plants. Chen Chen's paramotor could not be hidden for too long. In order to increase the load capacity, this paramotor was too large. People on the ground spotted them, and searchlights locked onto the paramotor's location. Gunshots rang out and bullets whizzed through the air. Since Chen Chen had to operate the paramotor, he had no way of firing back with his gun. Li Bang, who was sitting in the back seat, could only use a Type 81 rifle to provide minimal fire suppression. The blinding white light shone down, and Chen Chen shouted angrily, "Damn white dog, where's my rocket launcher?" However, before he could finish his words, he suddenly caught a glimpse of something strange in the white. It was a bright yellow ladder. A ladder extended from the distant mountains and forests to the sky below his feet. 12 phosphorus aluminum incendiary bombs were fired out, covering the center of the camp with a total dispersion of more than 400 meters. The flames burned violently, illuminating most of the camp, engulfing all the buildings, vehicles, and trees. Of course, there were also those who did not have time to escape. It cannot be said that the firepower in this area was suppressed instantly, but it disappeared in an instant. Chen Chen finally had the chance to gain altitude, and when he looked back down, he saw a figure struggling to climb out of the flames, rolling around wildly, and finally lying on the ground in a twisted state. Black smoke was coming out of his body, and his entire body had turned into charcoal. Yes, aluminum phosphide does not stick to human skin and continue to burn like napalm. It can be knocked off, extinguished, or even go out naturally when there is not enough oxygen. But you have to hold on for a few seconds. The extremely high combustion temperature will vaporize all organic matter instantly. Under such lethality, the limit that humans can endure is just a few seconds of horror. But worse is yet to come. After the first round of phosphorus aluminum incendiary bombs, the second round of armor-piercing high-explosive bombs was also fired. Violent explosions rang out, and the entire camp was in chaos. People were running and shouting everywhere, and people fell down without any warning. That was their last moment of life after being pierced by shrapnel. In fact, for a long time, the power of rocket launchers has been underestimated. People think that this thing has poor accuracy, low destructive power, and extremely low lethality efficiency. Some even say that it is on par with AK-47 and RPG-7 and is a representative weapon of low technology, low price, and used by low-quality personnel. But Chen Chen felt that the person who said this had never been hit by a bullet fired from an AK-47, let alone a rocket fired from a Type 63/107mm rifle. In reality, not to mention the prevalence of 107mm guns in the Middle East, the amazing performance of this thing in Vietnam and Cambodia once caused psychological trauma to American soldiers. Especially in fierce mountain battles, the advantages of the 107 rocket launcher are too obvious. The weight is almost the same, but the firepower of a single salvo of 107mm artillery is equivalent to 8 to 10 times the number of mountain artillery units, making it an almost irreplaceable suppression and killing artillery at the same price. Of course, these are just theoretical and logical judgments. Now, the screaming and howling soldiers of the 7th Brigade on the ground are the best illustration of the power of this rocket launcher. A high-speed falling shell hit the gathered crowd right on target, and the flames even turned into red blood rain. Under such suppression, Chen Chen's paramotor quickly took off and reached an altitude of more than 500 meters. The heavy machine gun on the ground was aimed at him, but at this distance, the effect of the gun was really limited. Not to mention, the searchlight is gradually unable to keep up with the speed of the paramotor. Chen Chen took a deep breath, but his heart was still hanging in the air. He vaguely felt that this raid was going too smoothly, and the smoother it was, the more likely it was that a greater danger would occur. This was Murphy's Law. The paramotor continued to rise, and White Dog's voice rang out over the radio. "We've already exchanged fire. The enemy has already set out in pursuit, and we've stopped them. We can only hold out for 20 minutes. Evacuate immediately according to the planned schedule." "Clear," Chen Chen answered loudly, and then shouted. "Number 5, evacuate quickly, evacuate quickly." "Understood. I have retreated to a safe area." "Very good." At this time, the only thing Lin he needs to do is not to worry himself. And obviously, he did a great job. "Where's the rocket launcher operator?" "Withdraw. We don't need the gun anymore." Chen Chen continued to give orders, and a reply soon came from the headset, but soon, the sound was covered by a dull sound. Chen Chen looked down in horror, and then discovered that in the southeast corner of the camp, smoke was coming out of the muzzle of a 155mm howitzer. Next to the gun, there was a strange white cylinder that looked like a small water tower, and was supported by 4 slender brackets. Chen Chen was confused. It took him half a second to react. "Run! CRAM! They have CRAM!" However, it was too late. Under the guidance of the anti-rocket artillery radar, the first shell had already been fired and rushed towards the rocket artillery position of the Lion Corps, or the Dongfeng Corps. Then came the second and third. Although the detection accuracy of this thing is only up to 100 meters within a range of 5 kilometers, it is really not easy to survive under such intensive artillery fire. Sure enough, the 7th Brigade is not useless. Not only the equipment, but also the fact that they could complete the aiming and firing in a short time showed that they were well trained. At this moment, Chen Chen had only one thought in his mind, which was to evacuate quickly, but often, the more times like this, the more difficult things will become. Bang, bang, bang. A series of explosions were heard, and Chen Chen saw that there was a double-barreled artillery in the camp, firing in his direction. 87 anti-aircraft gun. The effective firing height is 1,500 meters, the firing rate is 700 rounds, and the initial velocity is 1,050 meters per second. Uses 25mm shells. If you get touched, you will die. Chen Chen clearly remembered that no one had mentioned this equipment during the early intelligence reconnaissance. Whether it was Lin He's investigation, by Go's information sharing, or the intelligence forced out of the private soldier, there was nothing. That means there is only the last possibility. This gun is new. Chen Min, who are you trying to guard against? Chen Chen took a deep breath, and his hand holding the joystick became more and more stable. At this moment, he knew that he had no one to rely on. There was no extra firepower to destroy the gun, and there was no way to ask anyone to shoot out the gunner on the gun. We can only gamble that the other party is just guessing and that their gun does not have a Type 86 infrared tracking sight installed. But as the shells whizzed closer and closer, Chen Chen realized that he had lost the bet. He made a prompt decision and dived downwards. But this was a paramotor after all, not a fighter jet, and even at a diving speed, he could not escape the pursuit of the shells. The most recent shell had penetrated the parachute above. If a few more shells came, even if they didn't hit him, he and Li Bang would not be able to escape the fate of death after losing lift and falling. This is an almost unsolvable situation. But Chen Chen had no intention of giving up. He stared at the dark ground below, silently calculating the height from the ground. At worst, you could take a gamble and climb again. In any case, it's time for the Lion Corps to withdraw. His voice was extremely steady. "White Dog, retreat. No need for support. Evacuate immediately." "I fucking heard it. There's anti-aircraft guns. I'm leading the team to charge forward." The Lion Corps has no precedent of letting their employers die. The white dog's voice was anxious but calm. But Chen Chen knew that he was too late. A shell grazed by, hitting a parachute line and causing the paramotor to tilt instantly. There's no hope, fuck. Number 1, the plane is about to crash. Prepare for impact. However, just as he finished speaking, there was a sudden explosion sound from far behind him. The pursuing shells stopped instantly, and Chen Chen subconsciously looked back, just in time to witness flames rising into the sky. Oh shit, javelin. A top-penetrating blow. Then, a deep voice came from his earphones. Sunken, you better tell me that Chen Min is dead. This javelin is worth at least tens of millions. Half an hour later, the camp returned to peace after the war. Chen Jiashu, who received the news, hurried over. As soon as he walked into the camp gate, he was stunned by the tragic situation in front of him. There were fires everywhere and wounded soldiers everywhere. Looking around, the billowing black smoke was even darker than the midnight sky. He walked forward in a daze, and a familiar face appeared in front of him. The latter grabbed his shoulder and said, Boss Chen, we've been beaten, but I can see that. What are the casualties? In fact, what Chen Jiashu really wanted to ask was, how is my brother? But at the same time, he also knew that the more it was at a time like this, the more he couldn't panic. Once you show indifference to others, the team is completely finished. Therefore, he could only suppress the anxiety that was surging like a flood in his heart and force himself to appear calm. After seeing his performance, the owner of the face finally breathed a sigh of relief. He opened his mouth and answered. The casualties are at least over 100. The enemy's firepower is too strong. Rocket launchers, howitzers, thermobaric bombs, heavy machine guns, and finally missiles. They must be from Lao Myanmar. Only Lao Myanmar has such firepower. Old Myanmar? The corners of Chen Jiashu's mouth twitched slightly, but he couldn't help feeling a chill in his heart. How could it be Lao Mian? How the hell could it be Lao Mian? This is the Dongfeng Corps. It's a sunken ship. How dare they do that? How dare they break into the camp like that? How could they defeat them? Chen Jiashu took a deep breath and continued to ask. What's the situation of the enemy? Have they been completely wiped out? The man opposite was stunned. After a few seconds, he replied, one was killed outside the camp. It seems to be the responding personnel. We didn't kill any of those who attacked the camp directly. After hearing this result, Chen Jiashu became calm. Yes, that's the man's style. It would be a miracle if we could catch him. He shook his head, as if trying to dispel the fear in his heart, but it was of no use. The man's face occupied his entire sight like a demon. After a long time, he finally came to his senses. Then he asked, where is Brigadier General Chen? He's at the command post. Still here. This is the best news. Chen Jiashu regained his composure in an instant. He straightened his expression and said to the man in a low voice, take me there. The man said nothing, but walked forward to lead the way. The command post was only a few hundred meters away from their location, but the closer they got to the command post, the more Chen Jiashu could feel the fierceness of the battle. There were charred human bodies all over the ground. It was obvious that the other party had used incendiary bombs. He turned his head away, not looking at the tragic scenes that made his heart palpitate. And when he walked to the command post and saw the gate, which was still quite intact, he was finally completely relieved. It seems that everything is really fine. However, when he walked into the empty room, he saw no one. He looked at the man beside him and asked doubtfully, where's my brother? The man was silent for a long time. Finally, he answered, he is the commander. On the wall. 3 died. The 2 members operating the 107 fire died. They had internal bleeding and could not be saved. In Wannong village, in the temporary camp, Bai Go sighed and said to Chen Chen, we still lacked intelligence for this operation. First, we didn't find that they had anti-artillery radars, and second, we didn't find that they had 87mm anti-aircraft guns. If we had obtained these 2 pieces of information at the beginning, the casualties might even be 0. 1 round of rockets covers the artillery position, and 1 round of rockets covers you. It is actually quite enough. But it's too late to say anything now. Fortunately, the results were good, and overall the losses were not too great. Hearing his words, Chen Chen nodded slightly. Attacking the Munka camp of the 7th Brigade sounded incredible and even unbelievable. But not only did they defeat the enemy and complete the predetermined killing target, but they also escaped unscathed to a large extent, which was actually enough. If you really want to have no casualties at all, that would be very difficult. After all, the situation on the battlefield changes rapidly, and no one can take care of everything. A general who masters more than 50% of the changes is a good general. A general who masters more than 60% is a famous general. A general who masters more than 80% is a divine general. As for those who have a control of more than 90%, who can anticipate the enemy's moves everywhere, make the enemy dizzy with just a river, and even break out of the encirclement, they are probably only teachers in their prime. Therefore, Chen Chen would certainly not be disappointed with such a result. As long as Chen Min dies, everything will be fine. So he asked, how are the pensions for the 3 of them calculated? Deducted from the commission. You don't need to worry about it. You should make a quick phone call to confirm whether Chen Min is dead or not. No need to confirm. Chen Chen shook his head without hesitation and replied, it has been 3 hours since we evacuated. Munka has not sent out any troops to pursue us, and the defense lines that were originally on guard outside have all been shrunk. This shows that the other side has fallen into chaos. The only possible reason for the chaos is that Chen Min is dead. I estimate that it won't be long before the Jackal calls me to inform me. He has the most up-to-date information. We just have to wait. Just at this moment, Chen Chen's phone rang. He picked up the phone, and it was indeed the Jackal on the other end. The news the Jackal brought was very simple, confirming the death of Chen Min. The thermobaric bomb melted him in a slag and slammed him against the wall. Chen Jiashu simply blew up the entire command post as his brother's grave. After hearing the news, Chen Chen breathed a sigh of relief. From this point alone, it is enough to see that Chen Jiashu will not achieve anything great. How could he admit his death at this time? Keeping the death a secret and claiming that Chen Yimin was still alive was the only option to survive. It seemed that his choice to kill Chen Yimin first was the right one. The remaining most useless brother is no longer his opponent. After hanging up the phone, Chen Chen turned back to Bai Go and said, Chen Yimin is dead. He is dead. Very good. White Dog clapped his hands in satisfaction and said, that means our mission is over and we can return safely? That's basically it. Chen silently nodded but then asked, but do you really plan to go back? The White Dog instantly understood what Chen Chen meant. If I don't go back, I'll fight you. Yes, merge into the Dongfeng Corps. We are short of people, and you are short of money and leaders. Am I not qualified? That's enough. Where is the base? We have deep roots in Hua State, and we can't just give it up. If it cannot be separated, it cannot be managed. Hua State should give up and just set up an office and move the base to Mungka. No matter how deep your roots are, you can't penetrate into the local military control committee, but you can in Mungka. No problem. How about the share? We will discuss it later. It will not be lower than your current level. Make a deal. The White Dog extended his hand to Chen Chen without hesitation, and the Lion Corps was incorporated at such a lightning speed. In fact, this is the communication between the strong. The pros and cons are very clear. As long as Bai Go has a little bit of brains, he can see that joining the Dongfeng Corps is the best choice. Add to that Chen Chen's promise that revenue will not be lower than the current level. What else is there to say? The worst that can happen is that we can go our separate ways if we can't come to an agreement. But you have to agree to it now no matter what. However, even though the troops were recruited, the money for each mission still had to be paid, and Chen Chen had never thought about saving this money. Chen Yimin is dead, and there is so much money to be made. Is this the only thing missing? He let out a breath, thought for a moment, and then picked up the phone again. This time, he called Peng Shuqing. The phone rang twice, and then was picked up. It was obvious that the other party had been waiting for this call for a long time. Boss Peng, I'm a sunken ship. Chen Chen spoke. Hello, sir, go ahead. There was a sense of alienation in Peng Shuqing's tone. Chen Chen was stunned for a moment, then immediately realized that there was someone beside him. If it can't be Chen Jiashu, then it can only be Mu Gue or the real senior executives of Wanfeng Group. This is the best way to make things clear at once. So he said to Peng Shuqing, Boss Peng, please turn on the speakerphone. There was a slight click sound from the other side, and then Chen Chen continued. I need to issue a bounty through Mu Gue. A reward is offered for the death of Chen Jiashu. Reward, $500. Understood. When will it be sent? Now. Peng Shuqing was silent for a few seconds again. Chen Chen could almost imagine him confirming with his eyes the big boss behind the scenes. No problem. Chen Jiashu's death list. Reward of 500 yuan. Issued immediately. Open to the public. Anyone can accept it. Okay. Chen Chen didn't say anything more and hung up the phone. The White Dog at the side looked at Chen Chen with understanding and praised. You are really a talent. Hu Kaicheng, my former captain, could never do this. He is very good at fighting, but he is far inferior in this aspect. Wanfeng Group and Chasely have both expressed their opinions. Does this mean that the distribution of benefits for the 7th Brigade has been completed? No. Chen Chen shook his head and replied. Chasely and I are in a cooperative relationship. Although I don't have a strong say, Jackal will definitely keep me informed. At least wait until I return to Mungka. But they must have made plans to split the score. Let's go, lead the team back to Mungka and go directly to the Chaizili camp. We don't have to worry about Chen Jiashu's affairs. The dust is settled, and we will get the results in a few days at most. The bodies of the 3 mercenaries who unfortunately died were buried on the spot, and Bai Go simply erected a tombstone for them. This action reminded Chen Chen of Lin He's brother. No matter what, he should have a grave. Let's take advantage of our free time now to do this. After packing up, the 4 vehicles drove out of Wannong and then drove forward all the way to Mungka. An hour later, the Lion Corps, no, now it's the East Wind Corps, arrived at the camp in Chaizili. The Jackal had been waiting at the door for a long time. After seeing Chen Chen, his first words were, Shipwreck, the equipment is free, you're free. You are free now. He really loves puns. I saw that last time when he said enchant. Chen Chen smiled helplessly and replied, it's free, but it's not free yet. What's the situation in Mungka City? I don't know. Anyway, Chen Jiashu is not dead yet, but he won't be far away. I just received a call from headquarters. They are very satisfied with this operation. Although we should not get involved in disputes casually, I have already announced to the public that you stole our missiles, and it has nothing to do with us now. But that's fine. Just having a reason is enough. For other warlords who want to rise to power, this is a matter of attitude. Who would go into the details of how the Dongfeng Corps stole the javelin? What if Chasely accidentally dropped it in the woods and the shipwreck picked it up? Isn't that reasonable? Looking at the people led by the White Dog behind Chen Chen, Jackal asked curiously, enrollment expansion? That's right. By the way, pay them first. The balance is 300,000. It's really expensive. White Dog, I'll transfer the money to your account, and you can divide it among the others. No problem, Mr. Jackal. The two had taken over once before, so they were familiar with the place. After putting away their equipment, they followed the Jackal into the camp and arranged a place to stay and rest. Then, Chen Chen, Li Bang, Lin He, White Dog, and the Jackal stayed in the meeting room to chat. It was already 5 a.m., and less than 4 hours had passed since Chen Chen launched the raid on the 7th Brigade. The sky is still gloomy, but dawn is about to come. Within 3 days at the latest, the 7th Brigade will confirm the candidate for the new brigade commander and report to the military commission and the district committee. There may still be movement. in the city in the next few days, but there will not be large-scale conflicts. Of course, for safety reasons, you should stay in the camp for the time being, mainly in case you were hit by a stray bullet. The jackal spoke up. Will someone come at me? Chen Chen asked. It is almost impossible. If you did nothing wrong, they are targeting us, and if they are targeting us, they're targeting Thailand. You must be very stupid to do such a stupid thing. People who form a group and become warlords are all after money. Your goal is the same as others, so there won't be any problems. Who will take the blame? Killing a brigade commander is a big deal after all, and to some extent, it is a slap in the face of the Shan State Alliance Army. Although the military commission also wanted Chen Chen to die, they still had to give them an explanation to some extent. The Burmese should bear the brunt of this. Who else can bear it? The Munku Battalion will come out to take the blame. They don't care in the first place. As long as the peace agreement is signed and the reorganization plan is implemented, the frontline commanders here will all be successful in their careers. They don't care about that little bit of bad reputation. I heard that the Munku Battalion has already negotiated with the military commission. This attack will be blamed on them, and then they will give the Shan State Army some additional preferential rights. The Shan State Army will sign the agreement as soon as possible. In short, everyone is happy. Once the war stops, the economy will be revived. Hearing this, Chen Chen couldn't help but feel a little emotional. Damn it, I really changed history. According to the original development path, the 7th Brigade should have been the only unit that refused reorganization and finally insisted on independence. They are entrenched in northern Shan State and have developed into a force of 5 brigades and 6,000 people, which is a major hidden danger to Myanmar. But now, this hidden danger is gone. It seems that I am the one who earns the least. Forget it, let's take it slow. He hesitated for a moment and asked, since the fighting in northern Shan State has stopped, how are you going to sell arms? Hearing this, Jackal looked at Chen Chen in astonishment. Are you too tired and your mind is not clear? Why do you ask such a stupid question? If northern Shan State doesn't fight Myanmar, why don't they fight southern Shan State? They will be reorganized into a national police force in the future. Why did I hand Ja over to the 756th Brigade? Isn't that what you asked me to do in the first place? I really forgot about this. Chen Chen scratched his head embarrassedly. He was indeed tired. During this period of time, he has been in a state of rest and lack of sleep. It was fine during the battle, but now that I've relaxed, I really feel my brain is working slower. However, from what the jackal said, I can also see a very critical problem. That is, how should money be made? The wise work with their minds, the foolish work with their hands. The jackal merely plucked a thin string on the land and was about to start a war song that would last for a long time. No wonder after I told Jia the information she had, Jackal said, expanding relationships is not the most important thing. In fact, he had already thought through the entire layout at that time. When I was preparing to launch the assassination of Chen Chen, I guess he did a lot of things. Is this an arms dealer? I want to do it in the future. Chen Chen clicked his tongue twice and exclaimed, Jackal, you are much darker than I am. You're making too much money. Give me more money. The jackal rolled his eyes. Do you think you'll be short of money in the future? Don't ask me for it. I don't earn the money. Then I don't care. You pay for by go, but my commission of 500,000 yuan cannot be reduced by a penny. You are worse than a white dog. The white dog, whose English was not very good, looked at the jackal in confusion and did not understand what he meant for a moment. So are you going to give it to me or not? Here, isn't it just 500,000? Why do you need so much money? I'll buy a gun. What kind of gun do you want for $500,000? I'll buy a Gatling gun. I'll buy a mini gun. Seriously? The jackal was stunned. Dad, of course I'm kidding. Are you kidding me? Why would I need that thing? I want bulletproof vests, night vision goggles, radios, and all kinds of projectiles. Don't these all cost money? Are you going to give them to me for free? But that's true. But after the expansion, your training in the camp can be free, including the cost of ammunition. That's more like it. Chen Chen nodded with satisfaction. It's better to grab as much as possible. This time, Chasley is really going to receive a huge fortune. Even if he goes a little too far, the jackal will not be able to say no. A few of them chatted casually, waiting for the news of Chen Jiashu's sudden death. But unexpectedly, Chen Jiashu himself waited for the news before he received it. At 6 in the morning, Chen Jiashu arrived at the camp in Chaizili and asked to see Chen Chen. In a separate meeting room, Chen Chen sat opposite Chen Jiashu and looked at his face coldly. The entrance had already been controlled by Go and his men, and the Chasley mercenaries who had listened to Chen Chen's lectures were standing in the distance with a covetous look on their faces, staring closely at the dozen or so private soldiers brought by Chen Jiashu. They didn't understand interests, politics, or the game between big forces. They only knew that this commander named Shipwreck had taught them many practical things. They couldn't do anything about it outside, but if someone wanted to attack the commander in Chasley's camp, they would go up and bite the enemy to death without the jackal's order. In comparison, although Chen Jiashu's private guards were already considered the elite of the 7th Brigade, they could only tremble in fear in front of the famous Lion Corps and the unfathomable chase. They were truly trembling in fear because they knew that this so-called negotiation was almost equivalent to sending themselves to death. In fact, before coming, they had advised Chen Jiashu several times, but no matter what they said, Chen Jiashu was still determined to come. Why is that? Did he think that after he came here and expressed his so-called sincerity, the Shura-like mercenary would let him go? The other party did not hesitate at all when he killed Brigadier General Chen. Isn't the best way to pack up and run away? Whether going to the military commission or the local committee to file a complaint, or simply hiding under an assumed name and becoming a rich man. Aren't these both ways out? I can't figure it out. I really can't figure it out. If Chen Jiashu hadn't promised to give a large sum of money to anyone who came, they would never have taken the risk. After all, it wasn't just Chen Chuan who wanted to kill him. The entire Minka was undercurrent. All the superiors who have the chance to be promoted are keeping an eye on Chen Jiashu, their last competitor. The reason why they haven't taken action yet is just because they still have to consider their face and the trouble of dealing with the aftermath. So they plan to find the right person to take action against. And so on. Thinking about it this way, it makes sense why Chen Jiashu came to look for the shipwreck. Because the shipwreck was the source of this incident. If they didn't want to die, they really had to take a gamble and try to deal with him. After figuring this out, everyone in the guard platoon suddenly had hope again. Maybe Chen Jiashu and Captain Chen can really deal with the other party. At worst, I can just hand over my property. There's still a lot of hope. The trembling private soldiers finally calmed down. They looked at the barracks in the distance with expectation, quietly waiting for the result. At this time, Chen Jiashu finally spoke. You killed my brother. His expression was calm, but Chen Chen could tell at a glance that he was just pretending to be calm. Although he controlled his expression well, his sitting posture completely betrayed him. Cross your arms across your chest, point your toes to the side, and lean your upper body forward instead of backward. This was a very typical defense plus escape action, which showed that he had absolutely no confidence at this moment. If there is no bottom, it means there are no chips that can decide the victory. So the reason he came this time was not to negotiate, but to plead for mercy. Plead for yourself. So Chen Chen replied, yes, and your brother. Why? Chen Jiashu asked knowingly. Why do you care? I'm the one who put the bounty on you. Why are you looking for me? Do you think you're not dying fast enough? As soon as he finished speaking, Chen Jiashu's pupils suddenly shrank for a moment, but he quickly adjusted his mood. You won't kill me in the camp in Chasselie. I am still the acting commander of the 7th Brigade in name. My death here will cause them great trouble. In fact, this is my only chance. We don't need a life-and-death fight. We can trade. What Chen Jiashu said was true. It was indeed inconvenient for Chen Chen to attack him in the camp in Chasselie. This was probably why he dared to come here. From this point of view, Chen Jiashu at least has basic judgment. But it's inconvenient, but not impossible. However, Chen Chen was not interested in him as a person. Instead, the deal that Chen Jiashu mentioned made him realize another possibility. That is, some things can only be obtained by leaving someone alive. How do you trade? Chen Chen asked. I can be the brigade commander. I can cooperate with all your actions, and I can give you benefits that no one else can give you. As long as you support me, I can be controlled by you. To put it bluntly, you Chai Sri, Wanfeng group, and the Burmese army are just looking for an obedient agent, right? I can be very obedient, at least more obedient than the others you chose. This alone is enough to save my life, right? Not enough. Chen Chen immediately shook his head. Speak realistically, don't paint me a rosy picture. I take orders from you, not from Chasselie. Chen Jiashu continued. You should understand the difference between the two. That's why I want to talk to you instead of the jackal. Think about it. You can control the 7th Brigade as a shadow without having to rely on anyone. This is the result that many people dream of, and now, such a result is in front of you. As long as you nod, we will cooperate. I believe you can handle Chasselie and Wanfeng Group. I emphasize again that what you need is an agent. I could be their agent on paper, but actually be yours. A very tempting prospect. If he agreed to it, Chen Chen would immediately have a team of more than 2,000 people and could truly control the situation in a place. If he agrees to him, Chen Chen can escape the fate of a mercenary and become a commander as capable as the jackal. If they agreed to his request, the Dongfeng Corps would be on par with all other forces, and might even surpass them. Who wouldn't be tempted by such a prospect? As long as one is a man, he will dream of splitting the land and occupying the mountains to become a king. This is a primitive, instinctive wildness. If given the chance, no one can resist such temptation, but Chen Chen can. He shook his head and asked, do you take me for an idiot? I can see that you didn't come here to save your life. You came here for revenge. You want to drag me down with you, right? You want to die with me? Chen Jiashu was stunned. At this moment, he even had an illusion. Could this man opposite me really be a Shura who can see through people's hearts? If not, how could he have completely seen through my deepest thoughts in just a few words? Yes, I'm not here to beg for mercy. I am here for revenge. When the younger brother's head exploded beside him, when he saw the older brother's body stuck to the wall, when he tried to pull him down but only peeled off a thin layer of grease and flesh, he no longer thought about living. The death of a blood relative will bring blood feud. Although he is mediocre, he is not cowardly. So, after seeing the reward, he immediately realized that his chance had come. It was impossible to kill people with guns and cannons. Even if he knew that the shipwreck was in Chaselie's camp, he could not order the 7th Brigade to attack Chasselie, because that would immediately cause a mutiny. The only chance is to come in person and give the other party a reason that cannot be refused. As long as the shipwreck agreed to let him go, he would be dead. Because that means that the interests that should have belonged to others were taken by the sunken ship. He will definitely die. Those warlords who are like hungry wolves will not let him go. Not even Chasselie will let him go. But why did the other party see through his thoughts so easily? Chen Jiashu felt that his mind was in a mess. He opened his mouth, but saw that the other party had already pulled out a pistol from his waist. Do you know where you went wrong? Chen Chen asked. I didn't know we could actually work together. I don't know, so forget it. The next second, gunshots rang out. Bang! The bullet pierced through Chen Jiashu's forehead and knocked him to the ground. The last member of the Chen family died in front of him. In the most mundane, ordinary way, Chen Chen sighed and said helplessly, you are wrong because you are not Chen Amin. You speak as if you can really control the 7th Brigade. If he came to negotiate, I might agree. It's a shame it's you. Putting away the gun, Chen Chen signaled by Go to come in and collect the body. The latter looked at Chen Chen approvingly and said, I thought you would really agree to him. Promise me a fucking promise. Do I look like I've had enough of life? After a pause, Chen Chen couldn't help but continue. What a pity. It would be better if he was Chen Amin. However, Chen Amin will not come to negotiate with me. If he comes to negotiate with me, he will not be the Chen who can control the 7th Brigade. What a paradox. Hearing his words, the white dog nodded slightly. Then he asked curiously, you knew this would happen, so why did you let him in? Couldn't you just kill him at the door? I don't know shit. I thought he was really begging for mercy. I thought he would tell me the combination of his safe deposit box or his bank account number. If I could get these things out, then I could at least get a share, right? Unlike the 7th Brigade, I can't even get involved with it. Go didn't say anything else. He directed his team members to drag away Chen Jiashu's body, and then looked at Chen Chen again. This man, his current captain, is really extraordinary. Always calm, always sober, always cautious. If it were someone else, they would have really gone into the water, right? But he saw the crux of the problem at a glance. To put it bluntly, this is a question of control. If you don't have control over the 7th Brigade, how can you control it? Chen Jiashu still has a foundation. If he can die, why can't you die? When you're not strong enough, just drink some soup, but don't think about eating meat. But speaking of it, according to this development trend, the day of eating meat will not be too far away, right? Thinking of this, he walked up to Chen Chen and asked in a low voice, so when do you plan to start? I mean, get down to business. Chen Chen rolled his eyes. The team is built by ourselves, not snatched from others. Let's make money first. Without money, there will be no people. Without people, there will be no background. Without background, there will be no power. But at least, now we have officially established a foothold in Myanmar. Don't worry, just follow me, and you'll have meat to eat. Chen Jiashu is dead. It's time to divide the spoils. It's just 1 or 2 days. Be smart. I want to make some money this time. The distribution of benefits for the 7th Brigade was immediately carried out, and the results came out in less than 2 days. Ibupa took over as brigade commander. The position of regiment commander originally set up for Chun Shinha was cancelled, and the organization was broken up and merged into other battalions. Chun Jiashu's security brigade and battalion commander positions were given to He Honglai, and the management committee position was given to He Chinggong. In fact, in a sense, Ibupa's family is of the same origin as the He family of the 756th Brigade in Southern Shan State. However, the two families had fought each other even in the previous life. In this life, under the unintentional promotion of Chen Chen, they are of course even more hostile. The slogan for He Bupa's coming to power was to unify Shan State, which was undoubtedly in the interests of all parties and became the capital for him to come to power. However, Chen Chen was not in the mood to care about these things, because this large-scale change of power had nothing to do with him for the time being, and he could not gain direct benefits from it. However, this does not mean that his gains end there, because with the joint efforts of Jackal and Peng Shuqing, he got a chance to share the spoils. House search. The industries, trade routes, armies, and funds originally belonging to the 7th Brigade could not be touched, but any physical objects seized from the Chen family, including cash, would all belong to him. If he wanted, even the house could belong to him. This was what the Jackal meant by, will you still be short of money in the future? After receiving this news, Chun Chun was eager to get started. You know, the Chen family has been operating in northern Shan State and Munka for more than 20 years. During these 20 years, they have opened casinos, engaged in trade, collected security taxes, robbed mines, and done real estate. As long as it is a profitable industry, they have a monopoly. Although most of the funds are managed in special accounts and are not within his reach, Chen Chen believes that their residence has definitely accumulated enough wealth. They are not bandits who are so poor that they even buy low-end Rolex watches. They are rich warlords. Not to mention him, even Bai Go was excited about this. Yes, he knew that this was the prey captured by the Dongfeng Corps, and the newcomers who had just joined were actually not qualified to share it. But so what? We are all family after all, and the money is with Dad. If he's in a good mood, won't he leak some money? Even a drop of oil leaking from the gaps between his fingers was enough for him to eat and drink. Therefore, he was particularly enthusiastic about this matter. It happened that Bao Qi and Shi Dakai's injuries had improved, so he followed Chen Chen's instructions and spent half a day to go to Mengbin to pick them up and send them back to Munka, into the Chuanqing Hospital. He also brought back the team that stayed there. At this point, a total of 25 people from the Dongfeng Corps had arrived in Munka, forming a team with considerable deterrent power. Of course, there is no need to talk much about the rumors that spread in Munka City because of their arrival. Something like the legendary Shura Corps was actually the Lion Corps. The Zen master blessed the lion under Shura's seat. The Dongfeng Corps was originally a hidden chess piece laid by the He family, and the leader named Sunken Ship was actually an instructor of the Burmese Special Forces. In any case, the current situation of the Dongfeng Corps is that it has a large number of people and super combat power, so no one dares to fight it. It has a good reputation and a strong background, so no one wants to fight it. What stands out is safety. So, they only had one thing left. Everything is ready to make a fortune. On the last day of December, just as the new year was approaching, Chen Chen led a team of 23 people from the Dongfeng Corps, and Peng Shuqing, who was sent by the current brigade commander to accompany them, rushed to the first point, Chen Chen's residence, and began the house search operation. They were holding double execution orders from the Public Security Brigade and the Management Committee, and no one dared to stop them as they sped along. Chen Chen's family had already known their fate, so when the Dongfeng Corps arrived, all of them were already standing at the door waiting. There are 19 people in total, 7 men and 12 women. The men are basically either servants or bodyguards, and none of the women are over middle-aged. Seeing this scene, Chen Chen couldn't help but ask Peng Shuqing, does Chen Chen have no family? Peng Shuqing laughed and replied, gifts given to others must be packaged before delivery. Since brigade commander, he wants to give a gift. How could he not arrange for someone to do it? Don't worry. Those who were directly related have already been dealt with. The rest are basically people who have nothing to do with him and are unlikely to seek revenge on him. You can keep them all if you want. Of course, if you don't want it, just give it to me and I'll take care of it. However, there are a few good women. According to the news, They just arrived and have not been used yet. No, take everything away after you search the house. Chen Chen answered without hesitation and asked, does he have a safe or a secret room? Does he have a combination or something? We have them all, waiting for you to search. Then get these people out now. You really don't want to pick a few women? Peng Shuqing was a little surprised because these people were originally part of the gift. In fact, as he said, some of these women were quite good-looking, clean, and not broken, and they were also reliable. If it were him, he might have stayed. After all, some things are inevitable, and it is always safer at home than outside. However, Chen Chen's performance remained firm. We must not leave behind any unstable factors. We have finally gained some territory and power, so we must find a way to stabilize it as soon as possible. When is there no woman? There is no rush at this moment, and there is no rush at this place. Understood. Peng Shuqing waved his hand, and the Mu-Gui mercenaries he brought with him immediately stepped forward and took all 19 people away. Chen Chen doesn't care about the fate of these people. Yes, in a sense, they are also pitiful. If I don't keep them, and they fall into the hands of the Wood Ghost, the ending will probably be much more miserable. But the question is, why should I keep them? Why should I spend money and energy on them? There are always people who, right after they have gained some foundation, become ambitious, want to save the world, and want to control everything, but they have never considered that every step that deviates from the route on the way to the top may become the last step before reaching the summit. You are just one step away from losing everything. Therefore, we must be cautious, be careful, and tread carefully. When you really reach the top, you can do whatever you want. So Chen Chen just watched Mu-Gui lead the people away indifferently, and listened indifferently to the gunshots coming from afar, completely indifferent. The white dog standing next to him could no longer hide his admiration on his face. He looked at Chen Chen with eager eyes. Damn, what is a hero? What kind of skill is it to have sex with women? Being able to resist having sex with women when it is easiest to have sex with women is a real skill. Although he felt it was a pity to waste these women. So what? Following such a captain, when he really becomes big and strong in the future, will there be fewer women? I have been wandering for half my life, and I only regret that I have never met a wise leader. Now I finally catch up with him. He ran to Chen Chen and asked, Captain, shall we start searching? Search! At Chen Chen's command, everyone rushed in. He himself fell behind and silently observed everyone's actions. Since the newcomer was involved in the house search this time, he must have his own reasons. If he couldn't resist even such a small temptation, he deserved to be kicked out of the team. But fortunately, he was very satisfied with the newcomer's performance. After all, they are the last backbone of the Lion Corps, and everyone behaves extremely professionally. The valuable things were quickly placed on the open space under Chen Chen's feet and roughly arranged according to their value. Different types are divided into several piles, weapons in one pile, cash in another pile, and other valuables in another pile. It took a full 3 hours to search the 3-story villa with nearly 20 rooms, including the cellar and secret rooms. The 21 team members lined up, put down their guns, and took out their pockets one by one, pretending to wait for a body search to prove their innocence. The white dog stepped forward and symbolically patted everyone on the body. Chen Chen did not stop him, but he did not raise his demands either. Finally, it was time for the most exciting part of opening the treasure chest. Chen Chen ordered everyone to take a break and walked to the pile of loot that looked like a small mountain. The first thing he looked at was the pile of weapons and equipment, and the first thing that caught his eye was a few bulletproof vests. Among them, there are 2 most valuable ones. 2 very eye-catching and classic pieces. 1 dragon scale armor from Pinnacle Armor, and 1 IBA interceptor from Cry Precision. The so-called dragon scale armor is basically the most